Welcome, Vice Mayor and council members and members of the public. I call this regular meeting of the Albany City Council for March 4th, 2024 to order. I ask Councilmember Hanson Romero to read the land acknowledgement statement.
The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lejeune. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Thank you, Councilmember Hanson Romero. Moving on to item 2, roll call. City Clerk, will you please call roll?
Councilmember Hanson Romero.
Here.
Councilmember Jordan.
Here.
Councilmember Tiedemann.
Here.
Vice Mayor Lopez.
Here.
And Mayor Mickey.
Here. There were no items taken, no actions taken in closed session, so we'll move on to item 4, ceremonial matters. An update to the agenda, items 4.1 and 4.2 have been continued onto a future agenda. Members of the public in attendance or online may speak tonight on these items if you wish, but you may also speak in the future when we have that on the agenda. A little bit on decorum for tonight. In this and all comments and questions during meetings, please address the council, not other attendees, and respect each person that has spoken. For those in the audience not speaking, we ask that you refrain from voicing your support or dissent from comments made by members wishing for the council to hear their voice. The council wants everyone to feel comfortable speaking and not to be intimidated by others' comments or reactions. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 4.3, Proclamation, Peace in the Middle East. We will actually move straight to public comment on this. If members of the public in attendance could raise their hands if they wish to speak on this item. Right. And City Clerk, how many online do we have?
Right now we have 2.
2. Okay. For this item, I will allow 2 minutes for conversation on public comments. If we could start in person here within the council chamber, those who wish to speak, if you could line up behind the podium.
Sorry, Mayor, if you give me a minute, some of these are for both items, some of them are for one and not for the other, so. Actually, if you just go ahead and line up for the comment for the proclamation, because most of you didn't know which item that you want to speak on, so I'm not sure which item you guys are speaking on. Go ahead. The clock started.
Oh, okay. Thank you all. This proclamation, I've read it. It's meaningless. It serves no one. It mentions nothing of any substance, of any specifics. Peace in the Middle East could have been written by ChatGPT anytime, any place, about any country. I don't know what it's on here for. It's not for me. It's not what anybody's been asking for. It's specifically what people asked for the council not to do, which is to make empty gestures that serve nobody. It's shameful. How can you talk about peace in the Middle East without mentioning the people who are dying in the Middle East? That's dehumanizing to all the people who have lost their lives. I don't know why you thought that was a good idea. If you're going to speak on something, you should speak with some substance and some clarity and some moral conviction, not just hand wave and hope that people will go away with some empty words. It's truly shameful.
Thank you for your comments.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Tomiko Panzala. I'm an Albany resident and homeowner since 2020. The reason I moved here was to be near my grandmother, who lives in El Cerrito. She's 94 years old. The reason my family's in this area is because when my grandparents went to buy a house following Japanese forced displacement during World War II, many of the cities they wanted to move to, they would have to take a pamphlet around the neighborhood and have the neighbors sign off that it was okay for a Japanese family to move in. So, of course, they didn't feel welcome or safe there, so they chose this area because they felt welcome and safe here. So this is absolutely a local issue. The actions of the city and the city council determine who feels safe here and who feels welcome. And I don't know how anyone could feel safe and welcome if we don't reject genocide and forced displacement in the strongest terms possible. And so that is why we're demanding a ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Peter Bernhardt. I'm a 26-year resident of Albany. And while I appreciate the mayor's effort in the proclamation, I don't feel it goes nearly far enough. And I'm here to speak in favor of a resolution that will have actual meaning, that addresses the core issues in this conflict, and what we can do as a community to respond to it in a meaningful way. So I'll look forward to that discussion. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Just one clarifying thing. Right now on the agenda, we are talking about item 4.3, which is the proclamation. You will have a chance also to speak on the formation of an ad hoc committee for a ceasefire discussion.
My name is Dorothea Durenz. I'm actually a resident of Berkeley, but I do everything in Albany. See the doctor, get my hair cut, eat, go to acupuncture. What else do I do? Anyways, so Albany is very important. Actually, the most important thing I do is visit my son and his wife in Albany. So on October 6th, there was a ceasefire that Hamas broke on October 7th, 2023. This week, Hamas has refused a 6-week ceasefire offered by Israel, who asked for the names of the hostages who were still alive. We know that last week they learned that at least another 30 were dead. Hamas refused to supply the names and refused the ceasefire. So I'm calling on all of you to realize that in a way you're being played. When you're being told to be ashamed of not caring about Palestinian lives, it's not your job to weigh in on foreign policy. You can have your heart broken about all the deaths, but it isn't on your shoulders to stop this war. It's on the shoulders of Hamas and Israel and the Israelis who are fighting the war. It's actually a 7-front war. That's because Iran has proxies, and one of them is Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Syria, Iraq. And so you really need to see how complex this is. So when people are coming to call you to do a special, committee to to decide on a ceasefire, you're really wasting your time and energy, and I don't want to see you doing that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Lucia, and I hate coming here. Earlier this week, we organized a vigil for Aaron Bushnell. I'm not sure if you know who he is. He was an active member of the military, and he self-immolated in protest of the genocide that's ongoing in Gaza. I have read this proclamation. I am also Palestinian. This is a slap in the face. How dare you? How dare you? This is like an abuser beating someone and then putting a Band-Aid on it. You are dehumanizing the family members who you have paid your own tax money to rip into shreds. And you, in the audience,
Sorry, I'm
you
going
should
to
be
ask
ashamed
you-
of yourself. You should be
Ma'am,
ashamed of
ma'am,
yourself.
Ma'am, you have to direct all comments at the
I will
council.
direct this to you, these constituents who are not even from, I live in Albany. She gets her teeth fixed in Albany. She's at the end of her life, and she is telling you to not care about a genocide. Can you imagine? There is a name for this, and it is soul death. Indigenous people have a name for it, and it is soul death. You are beyond morally corrupt if you pass this proclamation. This is a soul death. You are dehumanizing yourselves by dehumanizing us, and we will never, never forget it. And I'm going to sit here until my time is over, and I would like for each of you to look me in the eyes as I shake. And I will direct to you, but I'm so curious what you would do if you could look into my eyes, you coward.
Ma'am, I will cut you off, and this is for anyone, if you cannot direct your comments to council.
Then look me in the eyes and tell me how you think that this is okay. Justify this. Shame on you. You know what we wanted. We spoke to you. And this is a slap in the face. Shame on you. Do not pass this. Listen to us. We are your constituents. These are our family members. They have names. This is bullshit.
Ma'am, thank you for your comments.
Just ask a clarifying question. Can I talk about the ceasefire in general, or is that for later?
That's for later.
So any general ceasefire?
Correct.
I will pass.
Good evening. My name is Rochelle Nason. I want to express my appreciation for the proclamation. I think that it is a unifying document. It is clearly intended to bring people together, and I think that is the proper role of the City Council, to bring people together as far as it is possible in these difficult circumstances. I have lived in Albany off and on all my life. A half a century ago, when I was in high school, there were times when I felt uncomfortable being Jewish in Albany, but I never felt afraid. I never felt afraid until the day of the rally and the march, as a Jew, that I could be actually physically in danger because of my identity and my belief in the right of the Israelis to self-determination in their homeland. So I want to urge you to hold up as the top priority, bringing the community together, making everyone feel safe here, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm Peggy McQuaid, an Albany resident. Albany became a sanctuary city in 2017, in part to reaffirm our commitment to recognize the dignity and civil rights of all community members, including the right of all community members to live, work, and study in a city that does not subject them to prejudicial treatment or discrimination. Albany was a founding member of United Against Hate, working to empower community members to take action in their local communities and alter the course of a growing intolerance. Recognizing many in our communities were hurting and fearful following the 2016 presidential election, a welcome statement was included on the City Council agendas, and it's still now part of your page on the website, which reads in part, "The City Council welcomes and values all of our diverse community members, regardless of where they are from, who they love, how they worship, how they look, their abilities, their housing status, or how they vote. We invite the entire Albany community to join with us in creating a self and welcoming city, one in which we celebrate our differences and learn from each other." A cross which stood on Albany Hill for many years was removed in 2023. While this religious symbol gave comfort to some in our community, to others it was a reminder of the burning crosses of the Ku Klux Klan, or a perceived message that not everyone was welcome here. I mention these facts to remind you and the community that Albany does have a history of supporting and uplifting our community members and recognizing our strength is in our diversity. Your proclamation continues this tradition, and I urge you to adopt it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Actually, I changed my mind. I do have a comment about this. Okay, thank you. Okay, my time has started. Yeah, no, I want to say that I do not support this proclamation, and I beg to differ with what some others have said here, that it brings the community together, because I don't think it does bring the community together. Because when it just doesn't, it's very empty and vague and generic, so it doesn't really, and so the fact that nothing specifically is mentioned, especially with the situation at hand, you don't feel like you're being heard or valued or safe when there's that, when we can't just get that blatant acknowledgement on paper. So it doesn't bring us together, I don't think. And also, yeah, and we can tease apart, we can pick apart the wording of this proclamation and stuff and go through it, and it's just it talks about principles of justice and equality, and we need to have found what is justice, what is equality, and if we can't blatantly acknowledge this injustice that is occurring right now in the Middle East and Gaza, then where is our foundation, our common foundation? So, yeah, that's my problem with the proclamation. It's that it just doesn't, it fails to acknowledge, and so therefore, members in this community who whether who are Palestinian or who are, or human and just feel for the people of Gaza, it just makes us think, how is this even, how is this bringing us together when it doesn't mention us, kind of thing. And I speak as I'm not Palestinian, and I don't feel like, and I feel like it's not indicating, it's not representing my values at all, and any person's values. Okay, that's all, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, council members. I came tonight because I heard there was that Albany was considering a proclamation about what's going on in Gaza, in the Middle East. Just a little background information on myself. This is the first council meeting I've been to, but I've been an Albany resident for 40 years and homeowner. Both my daughters went through the schools in Albany, graduated, doing well. I think the last time I was kind of motivated to come was a few years ago when Albany joined forces with El Cerrito and some other city and wanted to get one of the leftover tanks from Iraq and be a part owner of that. And that ticked me off quite a bit, but I never came down here. But what motivated me here tonight was I heard that you were considering a resolution about the Middle East and specifically Gaza. And to me, that meant something that meant something and took a stand. I was really disappointed in the language of the resolution because it was, frankly, it was kind of milquetoast platitudes that don't really mean anything. And in light of what's going on there, I thought at a bare minimum that there would be a call for a ceasefire and an end to the blockade of food, water, medicine, and fuel. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi. This also is my first time ever coming to a committee. I hate public speaking, and I was really motivated to come here. My name is Talia. I was born and raised in Israel. I've been a member of this community for many, many years. I have 3 children in the Albany Unified School District, and I'm incredibly proud to be a member of Albany. I have also the youngest son who is adopted and who is African American, and I'm married to a woman. I found Albany to be the perfect place for me, and every time we talk about moving, we quickly remind us what this community brings to us, and that's unity, and it's not division, and it's safety. And I will also say that after the war, I began to feel very unsafe in this community. physically unsafe, and that broke my heart because this is my community, and this is what me. The fact that I come with so many different, kind of backgrounds is the reason why I wanted to live here, and this is the first time where I don't feel safe. I wanted to say that this proclamation, while again, I think some of the words can be nitpicked, I think that it's a really nice effort to bring everybody together, and I just wanted to thank you for putting it together.
Thank you for your comments. City Clerk, how many online commenters do we have? Okay.
Hi, I think I'm up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thanks. My name is Jeffrey Blumenthal. I'm speaking as a 6-year resident of Albany and as a Jewish American who has attended numerous anti-war, some would call anti-Zionist demonstrations. I would say I've never felt unsafe at any of those. I've never felt unsafe in Albany, but I do want to hear and respect what other people are saying about feeling unsafe, and I think that's worth addressing when the matter of a ceasefire subcommittee comes up. As far as this proclamation goes, I will say the language is lovely, and so is the sentiment if you're in 4th grade. If it's a way to weasel out of addressing calls for a ceasefire, then I'm against it. If it's a prelude or a stepping stone to something substantive and telling the people that are shooting and firing missiles and dropping bombs, if you're serious about peace, then you're serious about telling them to cease fire. In the hopes that this is something, a pathway to something better, that's fine, but there needs to be something better. And I know we're going to talk about that later, so I look forward to addressing that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Amber Yeda. I'm an Albany resident. So this proclamation, it is a gesture of civility. And honestly, we've been too civil about this. Civility in the face of genocide is not appropriate. It does not go far enough. I'm gonna quote from a statement that was recently put out by the UC Berkeley grad students for justice in Palestine. When Zionist comfort is threatened, it is a crisis. When Palestinians die, it is business as usual, and Palestinians must accept it in the name of dialogue. And I reject this proclamation. If the intention is to move towards substantive structural ways to support Palestinians here in Albany, then let's do it. But we don't need a proclamation to do it. Let's just do it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, I am speaking, hold on, give me a sec. Thank you. I am speaking as a Jew, as someone who has been a Jewish educator for 5 years of my life, and I really resent this proclamation because it seems like a way to weasel out of trying not to sow division, trying not to be anti-Semitic, but what it is pathetic. You can't even tell your constituents that you see what's happening to them and their families. Do you understand that these are your neighbors, your friends, whose families are being decimated right now? I feel like there's a lot of sentiment in this council that this is a statement on something far away from us. So we can speak in abstract terms and pretend that it doesn't exist, that it's a fairy tale, and just regurgitate the same idea of a fairy tale that we have told ourselves so many times before. But this is real, and you have power over this. So it's really disappointing to see that you are not listening to the people in your city who are affected. So I would not like to see this proclamation go forward. Please write something that actually says the word ceasefire, that says Palestine, that calls for cessation of violence, for right of return. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm speaking as an Albany resident. My name is Cecilia Avalar, and I really want to echo the sentiments of a lot of the community members here in this meeting that call for stronger languaging in this proclamation, specifically languaging around a ceasefire. Again, I want to echo what other people have said. This is not a faraway issue, so therefore it's really important for us to be specific about our demands, specific about our intentions as a city, as a community. There are many people in our community affected by the lack of a ceasefire specifically. The lack of a ceasefire is what's killing families, what's bringing people to the brink of starvation. People wake up to the news of Israeli soldiers massacring people who are looking for aid. And so I really don't know how we can come to any other solution, any other conclusion than the fact that we need a ceasefire. Our community needs a ceasefire. And so I really want to push the City Council to look for stronger languaging, specific languaging around a ceasefire. It's important that our voices as a city be heard all the way in Washington, and a ceasefire resolution is a way to do that. We want a ceasefire so there can be a diplomatic solution, and currently a solution will not be found in the middle of bombing and starving an entire population. So I really want to ask the City Council, who has been saved by the lack of a ceasefire? Really no lives have been saved without a ceasefire. So call for a ceasefire, be specific. The world has had seen so much nonstop death and destruction, which we are funding. And so therefore it is our responsibility as a community to stand up for our community members and call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. So I'm really pushing the City Council to look deeper into themselves and call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Davila. I'm a former council member in the city of Berkeley. I'm urging you to pass a proclamation that talks about the ceasefire, that talks about the ethnic cleansing, that talks about the the punishment and the atrocities that are happening to the Palestinians at this point in time, but has been going on for, prior to 48. And you have to realize that we are in a time right now where we are seeing live a genocide, live. People are we've all seen it on Instagram and all these different social media posts of the atrocities, bombing hospitals, bombing schools, maiming and killing children, their parents, so many atrocities. You have to have the courage to be bold and to stand up and be heard. Listen to your constituents and listen to the people of the Bay Area who are out in the streets protesting this horrible, you can't even call it a war, really. But you really need to pass a ceasefire now resolution in Albany. Sadly, our Zionism is alive and not moving the Berkeley City Council, but you can do better. You can do better. Zionism is equal to racism, which is equal to hate. Please pass something that says ceasefire now.
Thank you for your comments.
Judy, go ahead. We'll come back to her.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, so I'm not prepared for the long comment, but I just want to say that I really appreciate the comments that from people tonight. I think that milquetoast platitudes is probably the best summary of how I feel about this proclamation. It really says nothing. It's the person who was so angry, the person who spoke earlier, I completely understand why she's so angry. And I really, really hope you don't pass this. And I don't know what you should do, but it's just, it says nothing. And it takes, to come from a place of saying that we should all get along, or we are a diverse community and everybody gets along, without considering who's actually being impacted and what kind of impact it's having on people's lives and their families, is just really disrespectful. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Judy, go ahead and unmute yourself. Looks like we probably can't hear her. Judy, go ahead and send in your comments to citycouncil@albanyca.org. Thank you. That's all.
I want to thank everyone for their comments tonight. I understand that this is something that for all of you, you take very personally, and it is very important to you. I do want to emphasize that please keep comments to the council, and that I appreciate you all attending and providing comments, and I understand your passion. With that, I will open it up if any council members would like to make comments. I will say a few comments. I appreciate everyone who wrote in. There were many that wrote in today, both about this item and item 1112, which we will get to later today. I am the author of this proclamation, so if you are not happy with the language, or if you are not happy that I did not go far enough, I am the one that authored it. And I authored it from a place of when I heard people speak in the various council meetings, when I met in person, I truly felt that everyone in their heart is looking for peace. And I understand that this as a proclamation perhaps does not go as far as some would like. With that, I will offer that is also why I put 11.2 on the council agenda for us to discuss the possibility of forming an ad hoc committee to discuss a ceasefire resolution. With that, I will close item 4, and we'll move on to item 5, City Manager's report. City Manager, may the council have your report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. A reminder that tomorrow is Election Day. Primary elections in California are tomorrow, March 5th. We have a drop-off box outside City Hall in our back patio. So please take advantage of that convenient opportunity to vote. As we all know, it's critical to share your thoughts on this election. We also have a 24-hour, we also have the accessible voting center at the community center up at 1249 Marin Avenue, and also at the Veterans Memorial Building in Memorial Park. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. tomorrow at those locations. Of course, you can also drop your ballot in the regular mail as long as it's postmarked by tomorrow. Any questions specific to the election, the best location to go online is Alameda County Voters Center, acvote.org. We continue to do planning work on Albany Hill. We will have a community design session on March 14th. Last fall, city staff and consultants held 2 sessions, engaging community members and receiving feedback on how to manage eucalyptus trees and restore habitat on Albany Hill. This outreach is ongoing, and staff and consultants will hold a design session at March 14th as part of our Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commission meeting. We also are proud to continue our Friends of Albany Parks cleanup program. This is an opportunity for community members to get involved and care for our parks. All parks are included in this. The next event will be Saturday, March 23rd, 9 to noon on the Albany Greenway at Albany Loop, specifically corner of Masonic and Portland Avenue. So come and join the cleanup fun. Also, a reminder that we have a Albany Murals Project call for artists. This is a unique new opportunity as formulated by our Arts Committee, which will involve murals installed on 4 BART columns supporting the BART tracks at the intersections of Solano and Masonic Avenue. So the call for artists is ongoing. Submissions are due May 20th by 4 p.m. And a note that we have 2 vacancies on our advisory bodies right now, which advise the City Council. That includes our Arts Committee as well as our Planning and Zoning Commission. You can check out the opportunity on our website, and the short link for that is albanyca.org/advise, where you can find the application and other background materials. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. If anyone would like to ask any questions about or comment on the City Manager's report, please raise your hand in the audience here or press your raise hand button online. Please step up to the podium.
The park cleanup, just reminds me of my father. He was a World War II Marine veteran, trained in the Marines, and when I was growing up, we could never walk a distance without having to police the area. He called it walking and picking up litter. It used to drive me nuts. Thanks for reminding me of that.
City Clerk, any online comments? Okay. Any comments or questions from council for the City Manager? Okay. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 6. Good of the City. Good of the City, this is for attendees to provide council comments, information, and questions on items that are not on the agenda. Please raise your hands now in person or online, pressing the raise your hand button.
2, 3.
Okay. If we could have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Francesco Papalia. I've been a longtime resident of the city of Albany. I've come to many of these forums over the past 10, 20 years, and I have always identified myself by full name and that I'm a resident of Albany. And I would ask you to, if this is a policy that you should be followed or not, because too often people come up here and some may just be nervous and forget. I get that. But others seem to be hiding behind the anonymity of no name, no acknowledgement of where they live. And then sometimes they go overboard and try to intimidate you and others by the way that they talk. And I think they can hide behind this anonymity. And so by assisting, they should be proud. Anyone who wants to speak should be proud to tell their full name and where they're from. Now, some people may not live in Albany, and we need to know that, and so that we can identify their perspective from non-Albanians. And those that are in Albany, who are our constituent, your constituents, and my fellow taxpayers, then have a different perspective. And we can expect something from, and they may expect something from you as we expect from each other in return. That's about it. I'd like to have a reiteration of the policy and attempt it, and if people just interrupt people, not interrupt them, remind them to introduce themselves. And thank you.
Thank you for your comments. City Clerk, any online comments?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So yeah, I see that it's not on the agenda. I know the proclamation was on the agenda, but I really, again, want to reiterate the call for a ceasefire resolution to be placed on the agenda. And I want to thank the mayor for addressing his authorship around the proclamation. And again, just to reiterate that a call for ceasefire is a call for peace. So as an Albany resident, I would really, really love to see a ceasefire resolution on the agenda. So that way, again, that can be presented to the city and can represent our voices. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I wanted to talk about stop signs for a minute. I have been, as I walk around Albany a lot, I've lived here a long time, and I've seen more and more people not only not stopping at stop signs, not even pausing at stop signs, but also starting to drive through red lights. And I'm really concerned. And I thought that it was because people were in such a hurry, they'd become sort of careless about it. But I was taking a walk the other day, and I was at the corner of Solano and Pierce, and there was a police officer parked there. It's a four-way stop. And I noticed that every single person who drove up to any of those 4 stop signs stopped. And so after watching this for a few minutes, I walked over to the police officer and asked him, I said, "Are you here because of the stop signs?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, I was shocked to see that people are stopping at the stop signs because I'm not used to seeing cars stop, and which is a big concern to me. And he laughed and he said, yes, no matter where he goes in Albany, he's parked near a stop sign, people stop because he's there. And I know it was really naive of me to think that people were just sort of blithely doing it and gotten used to it, but it was really a revelation to me that people actually are very purposely not stopping at stop signs, because if there's a police officer there, they're saying to themselves, oh, I better do it because somebody's watching. And I have some ideas on how to make this better that I've shared with the police chief and other people in the city. But I just wanted to mention it because I hope that everyone who's listening here will stop at stop signs. That's what they're for. If you don't like the law, try to change it. But in the meantime, that's what they're for, is to stop. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
While we're on general city business, I wanted to address for dog walkers, places to deposit dog poop. I've got a couple dogs. I walk them multiple times a day, and I have identified several places where I think a little dog poo trash can would be great, like you see at a dog park, like you see behind a Motel 6, things like that. One is on Hillside Avenue above the Children's Center. There's a strip of grass where dogs like to poop, and a little poop container right there would be great, and the garbage man could just come and pick it up and empty it. And the other one is on the Albany side of Creekside Park in Madison, where Madison goes into that strip of green space at the base of Albany Hill. I've written to City Council about this probably just once before. And if somebody could address and just give me a ballpark, like, is this one of those things that costs, an outrageous amount of money that the average unsuspecting citizen wouldn't know? Or is this kind of easy, and if we just, put our minds to it, we could get it done? Yeah. Oh, and just a reminder, there's a dog on the city flag, so this is the kind of thing I think we should be able to get done. And there's a lot of garbage cans around town that have a sticker that say no dog poo. So I think this is a real city issue that we can address alongside world politics. There's no reason we can't do both. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hey, this is Amy. I wasn't going to speak, but I just wanted to reiterate what Julie Winkelstein said and thank her for that. I actually ran into her when we were both on a walk a couple weeks ago when we were talking about this. Yeah, drivers just speed and run stop signs and run stoplights all the time. I walk all over town and I ride my bike all over town. And when I'm on Solano, at least twice a day when I'm on my bike, I literally have to take my bike and block a crosswalk to let pedestrians cross because drivers really aren't paying attention, they don't care, and kind of I look at the pedestrians, go, what is going on? It's like no one cares. I really think the police need to get out on foot or on their bikes. They've got mountain bikes or get out there and walk the beat a little bit, especially during school hours, to connect with the people that they're supposed to protect and stand in between the kids that are trying to cross the street so they can walk to school safely and the cars that have to get someplace 2 seconds earlier. So please just try to make seems like it should be something that's pretty obvious, but drivers are always in a big hurry and I wish they would slow down. And as Julie said, if cops are there, they somehow seem to pay attention and slow down. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you, everyone, for providing comments. I would encourage those that spoke about stop signs and about the dog poop trash cans that those are both items that could be related to future discussions about the active transportation plan. And so those comments, I would encourage you to send in to staff and that they be thought about for the active transportation plan. I do want to comment, Cecilia, the ceasefire resolution discussion is on the agenda. It's 11-2. It is about the formation of an ad hoc committee. It is not a discussion about the language that would be within a ceasefire resolution. I wanted to follow up with one last item. Mala, I'm looking at you. I just want to make sure my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that state law does not allow us to require someone to state their name or whether or not they are a resident of the community.
That is correct. The Brown Act does not allow for that.
Okay. And that is done, my understanding, it's to make sure that people feel comfortable being able to provide their comment without fear of retaliation. And that, I believe that is in keeping with our desire as a community to be inviting and open to all comments and all people. That being said, if you are comfortable sharing your name and whether or not you're a resident of Albany, I would encourage you to do so. That helps us as council members and helps staff to do any follow-up if there's any follow-up that might be needed. With that, we'll move on to item 7, consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. By approval of the consent calendar, the staff recommendations will be adopted unless otherwise modified by the City Council. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or a member of the audience requests removal of the item from the consent calendar. Are there any items that council members would like to be pulled for discussion? Not seeing any from council. Are there any items the members of the public, either online or in attendance today, would like to pull for discussion? I'll look to council members for a motion.
I will move the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Councilmember Hanson Romero,
Aye.
Councilmember Jordan,
Yes.
Councilmember Tiedemann,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lopez,
Yes.
and Mayor Mickey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
With that, we'll move on to item 10. There are no item 8s or item 9s, no presentations or public hearings, so we'll move on to item 10, unfinished business. Item 10.1, revenue measures for funding core city services.
Good evening, Council, Albany residents, and friends of Albany.
My name is Devora Zotterer. I am Public Works Program Manager, and this discussion tonight is continuing on a discussion that we've been having over the last several months and year. So let's get started. So a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about. I will chat a little bit about where this item is coming from within this history of this longer discussion about city funding. Give you a little bit of an overview of how the sidewalk tax funds our sidewalk program, the history, some achievements of the sidewalk program, the current picture of what the program has grown into, and then recommendations and next steps for what our sidewalk tax will look like and what it will take to, or could look like and what it will take to achieve that. So, as I mentioned, this is continuing on from a conversation when you last saw me in October with some of our finance staff in October, where we talked about generally different items that staff could pursue on behalf of the council for exploring different revenue measures to be brought forth to the upcoming election and explored outside of it. One of the items that was brought up at that time was the sidewalk parcel tax, which currently funds the successful sidewalk repair program. At that time, it was considered to expand the scope, to explore expanding the scope of that tax to include other infrastructure systems that are in the city's particular view at this point, such as street trees or street lighting. But at that time, as is still true and relevant, the costs and associated with those infrastructure systems and reinforcing those for the future aren't really formed enough at this time to consider incorporating into a tax. And you, at the February 5th meeting, Public Works staff brought to you an update on the sidewalk repair program. The scope of critical repairs identified by our sidewalk survey has recently been completed, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but you got all the highlights from James, so I won't repeat too much of that. So you received that in February, and one of the biggest things I wanted to highlight is that having this type of focused tax really enables us to plan and deliver a successful program with meaningful beginnings, endings, milestones. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background for those who might not be as familiar as, or who would just like a reminder. The sidewalk parcel tax passed as Measure P1 in 2016. I didn't include here is that it passed with rating or a percentage of 78.6, I believe. And the collection of this tax, it is a 10-year parcel tax, and it is scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2026. The range from the first year through the current year, it started out approximately at $200,000 annually in revenue, and with a 2% or consumer price index escalator, whichever is less, it has increased to this year's revenue, which is approximately $226,000, pardon my typo. The tax does include exemptions that can be applied for folks who are eligible according to HUD low-income standards, and those can be processed through our finance department and accessed through our website. So James Sorelli, our sidewalk program manager, gave you really much more information that I could tell you, but what was the sort of high point of that and what is relevant here is that over 8 projects or 8 phases, approximately 400, I think a few more than 400, but approximately 400 locations and over 61,000 square feet of Sidewalk in the city of Albany has been repaired to date. And that is funded by $1.17 million in Measure P1 funds spent on the program. So as we have dived into this program, thanks to the funding and the priorities and investment of the Albany community, what we have learned is that while we prioritize investing these funds into direct costs of these construction projects, for design, for the actual construction, as the program has developed, there are some key elements that have grown that are essential parts of the program itself, a sort of holistic view of what it takes to deliver these projects. There are more things that are just listed here, but three highlights are the Sidewalk survey, which is a survey of sidewalk conditions throughout the city that is repeated every 5 years. And it helps us to inform, data helps us to inform potential scopes for projects, to identify different classifications of repairs, and to work with the Transportation Commission to scope projects and to prioritize repairs in Albany based on different needs at the time. The sidewalk shaving is one of our maintenance activities. It involves grinding sidewalk offsets. It extends the life of sidewalk so that more comprehensive, more expensive, and more disruptive repairs can be, it supplements that other type of repair. And then, of course, the time it takes to manage the program, the staff it takes to actually manage the program. At this time, all of those costs are funded outside of this tax. And to be able to renew and expand the tax would enable us to fund this program holistically and to give it an independence from other budget decisions that would ensure the resilience and the continuity of this program. And again, I'll say that the focused scope of this tax is what enables us to not let the funding get taken away into other things. The focused scope enables us to have measurable successes that can be documented, shared, and continued. So the last piece of this that I'll say is that while we certainly have other infrastructure systems that we want to build into our funding for the long term and we're not currently ready to do that, pursuing a 10-year renewal would allow us to continue with this kind of cyclical planning we do as part of the program. We are sort of constantly in a design construct cycle. And so while one project is being designed, the previous one is being constructed, and as that new one is being constructed, we can work on designing the next. And with that time horizon of funding, we're able to continue that cycle without kind of fearing a disruption. A shorter or longer term has different implications. And with that kind of longevity, we're able to ensure consistent project delivery and really better share with the community the vision we have for the program, to update at different milestones, and to make sure that we are taking the time and the energy to improve the program along the way. Thank you. So I won't talk for too much longer because I know we have lots of things happening tonight, but the staff has worked with financial consultant NBS to examine different scenarios and models for renewing this tax. And the recommendations from staff are to pursue this 10-year term to ensure a sufficient time horizon to continue with program activities while still leaving room for potential restructuring down the road, and to pursue a 50% increase with the same 2% escalator which would enable us to incorporate more of the sort of holistic program activities. Because in the end, our priority is to continue this successful program, to not fix what isn't broken, and to be able to deliver quality sidewalk to Albany residents in exchange for their investment and trust in us with their resources. So what this will mean, our next steps here, depending on the discussion tonight, and what we would do is to prepare a text of a measure, which would be brought to voters in the election in the fall. And with that, an ordinance update incorporating clarifying language as needed and incorporating the changes noted. And we would also be bringing, for the potential scope items, we would also likely be bringing a sidewalk policy update, which would only require council review and approval. Then all of this would come back to the council in June to review and to approve the measure to be put on the ballot. And then we'll see it on the ballot in the election in November. So I have lots more, I have more details and such on the rates, et cetera, but this is the broad overview, and I'm happy to answer questions or discussion as needed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll look to council for any questions of staff. Sorry, I'm a little caught off guard there. Not seeing any questions from council, I will open it up for public comment. Any members of the public in attendance, if you line up at the podium, and members online, please press the raise your hand button.
Francesco Papalia, Albany resident. I do a lot of walking around town, and I've noticed the very poor condition on Solano Avenue. I know it's tough and it could be expensive, and I hope you can get to replacing large swaths of the sidewalk, particularly on the north side. But on a related issue, access to the sidewalk is often impeded by people letting their landscaping and other things literally growing over 25% of the sidewalk. And it would be nice if we started a policy in which we could notify property owners that they have a duty or not to maintain free access to the sidewalk in all parts of town. Because I'm going to be walking more and more these days because I'm recovering from a medical condition in which walking is going to be the best thing that I can do. So, and I usually walk with my partner, and too often we're walking down the street and then we have to stop and let one person go ahead while I go behind her because there's something blocking the way, and it's just unnecessary, and it shouldn't have to cost the city anything.
Thank you for your comments.
Rochelle Nason, Albany resident. I wasn't going to comment on this, but I just can't resist. I'm just so happy to see the size of it increased. I think that's very helpful, very good to see. I do understand the benefits of the focused program, and I think that's great. But I think it's also important to recognize, while the money supports the program, it works the other way around too, that the money has a kind of program forcing element or effect. And I remember I was on this council 8 years ago when we approved this the first time around, and there was some discussion there of wrapping sidewalk lighting and intersection improvement for pedestrian lighting at intersections. And we decided we didn't end up doing that. But I hope the council might consider perhaps having this be a twin measure, sidewalk and lighting, and you could still have the benefits of a focused funding stream, but also have a focused funding stream for lighting. And then that should have the effect of potentially, or could have the effect of pushing that forward, because it's been a long time and the lighting is really a deep concern in the community. I walk around with a light on my head and lights on my shoes and chat with people when they ask about my lights, and we talk about how much we would like to have better lighting to be able to walk around town at night. We want people to be able to live here without cars. If you need your car to feel safe at night, you know, that's just one more impediment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi again, it's Amy. Yeah, it's super important that walking is safer and more comfortable for everybody who wants to walk around Albany, whether they're walking to school or to a restaurant or just walking up Solano Avenue. So thank you for continuing this project, this program, and fixing sidewalks in equity with fixing streets. As Francesco mentioned, the sidewalks on Solano Avenue are definitely in poor condition, in part because of large trees that have been there and the roots have lifted up the sidewalk, so it would really help if those were fixed, and that would certainly help local businesses as well. And the human scale lighting, not just highlighting, but human scale lighting, as Rochelle mentioned, would also be a really good idea and also help the local businesses. People like to walk out to dinner or take a walk afterwards and maybe grab an ice cream or something like that, and better sidewalks and human scaled lighting would help businesses as well. Thank you.
Go ahead and unmute.
Hi there. Las Vegas has called the A's Stadium plans a failure and are encouraging the team to stay in the Bay Area. Let's explore bringing them to Golden Gate Fields with private funding to get done what our neighbors in Oaktown couldn't do in 40-plus years. Though the likelihood of creating a home for the A's in Albany is low, the potential payout to fund city needs in our cash-strapped school district is extremely high. Think out of the box for this special moment in time. With the racetrack leaving, this time warrants it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I wanted to address some of the comments that were brought up. I'm going to look to staff and council again, but I believe landscaping impeding access on a sidewalks, I believe there are already statutes in the books. I believe it is a complaint-based response. So in other words, a complaint has to be filed for staff and or the police to do something. I know that in particular for cars, it is a complaint-based process. So am I remembering that correctly?
Mark Hurley, the Public Works Director. When we do get notice that there are encroachments into the public right-of-way, we try to send letters to property owners. Some property owners get on it and address it very quickly, others not so much. And so I think it's a constant thing that we send out letters and try to encourage response, but that is an ongoing problem.
If I can just add that we have run educational materials before in our e-news, and that's certainly something we can do again.
With that, I will bring it back to council for discussion.
Now I have things to say. Won't surprise you. To one of the commenters, certainly my hope was to include street lighting as well as street trees in this measure. But as has been described, those plans are not far enough along in development to structure finances around at this point. So that's going to have to wait. Measure in 2026 is my hope. I wanted to do it all at once to save some campaigning, but that's not going to be not going to be advisable. The existing tax, which I was intimately involved with advocating for, was, to my knowledge, Albany's first tax that had any bracketing for size of property. And so that was a step. With Measure K, we've taken another step that many other cities have preceded us in taking in terms of calibrating the size of the tax based specifically on the square footage of the property. P1 didn't do that because of a variety of reasons. One would have been the administrative burden for such a small tax, as you saw what the revenue was. But now that Albany has done that for Measure K, that work is essentially in the books and can be recycled. So my preference is to structure this tax based on square footage of property rather than have these brackets. And another consequence of that is that the current brackets really top out at a fairly small property equivalent. So it's any property over, I don't remember what the number is, but 20,000 square feet, something like that, is charged the same, whether it's 20,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 square feet, or there's parcels that are even larger than that. And so by making it per square foot, it will calibrate to the size of the property. There's a technical reason for that, which is that sidewalk doesn't wear out when people use it. The amount of sidewalk we need is based on the size of the city, the density of the city, or, well, actually not the density, but the size of the city, the length of the streets. And so if there's large properties, they have more sidewalk that's supporting them along their frontage. Using the template for developing the structure of Measure K, I was on the ad hoc committee for that. If the tax is 1.4 cents per square foot, it will generate more than 50% more revenue. It will generate a bit more than that, enough that should Golden Gate Fields parcels become non-taxable, that it will still leave the program whole, able to fund the additional elements the staff is recommending. And my computer just went to sleep, as it does, so hold on just a minute, I'll get back to my notes. And I would also suggest including authorization in the measure to spend the revenue on some other items. This is just authorization, not commitment, and they are related items, as you'll see in a moment. The reason I'm suggesting this is because it's a 10-year tax. At the rate the sidewalks have been improved over the last 6 or 7 years. I mean, the first phase under the current program was 2018, if you discount the pilot phase, which is before the measure was passed. So it's really been 6 years, although there's been 2 phases a year in the previous 2 years. The sidewalks have gotten dramatically better from my perspective, and while there's certainly defects at that, I expect after another 6-7 years of repair, there may be other things that could be done with the funding. So to leave that flexibility, a little bit of flexibility, I would suggest including multi-use path maintenance. So maintenance of the Alona Greenway path, and we have more and more paths. We've got the Coordinations Creek path. That components of, one component is just about to be finished, so that one probably won't need maintenance, but the Buchanan path has been around for quite a while, particularly the segments out towards the waterfront. That segment of the Bay Trail. So there are more and more multi-use path in Albany. So I think it would be wise to allow, not require, but allow some of this revenue to be spent on that if it comes up as a high priority. And then there's also sidewalks that are too narrow for their use. So we've heard, in the case of vegetation encroaching, that people have to go single file. Well, there are some sidewalks that are so narrow that you're hard pressed to walk side by side anyway. And a lot of these sidewalks are next to Solano Avenue, and they're on the block adjacent to Solano Avenue, which you would think as you go towards Solano, the sidewalks get wider, you get more capacity, but they actually get narrower. So the other suggestion I have for allowed but not required spending is for widening sidewalks in, particular high priority strategic areas. So just those 2 items. Thank you.
Looking for any other comments from council members? I too share your concern, or I share your concerns about wanting to make sure that we allow the revenue to be used on the original intent of upgrading sidewalks that might be too narrow, or maintenance of the multi-use paths. I will say that I do have some concerns about the numbers, understanding that more money is helpful. And I want to make sure that in previous discussions that we have talked about, and this is for us as a council later, or perhaps a different council, that this measure might be amended in future elections to include lighting and tree maintenance, which I think would be important, because that would allow us to diversify as the needs come up, have a money source that as we're fixing a sidewalk, we can also install lighting, or we can better maintain a tree along that street. So I do think that is a long-term importance. I am always cautious when we ask the voters to approve multiple tax items over multiple years, and that currently, as discussed by staff, that we're asking for a 50% increase or changing the system to Measure K, while I think voters will understand that system because they have approved it once. Again, I think the thing that they will see is an increase in our taxes, as opposed to, I would ask of the council, or perhaps this is a question for staff, but what if for this election cycle, we were to actually keep the funding where it is with a 3% increase? With my long-term intent and goal is that in 2026, we will have a ballot measure that asks this tax to be amended to include lighting and street trees. And I say that because not only will we have better numbers on lighting and street trees, but our ATP will also pass. So this question about how much money might we need for expanding sidewalks will be answered. This question about what are other improvements for crossing, the actual crossing when one goes from a sidewalk across the street, what those things might cost, that we, in essence, hold the funding that we have now. And in 2026, we ask people for an amendment that would ask for more money, but it would be more money for the sidewalks, more money for the lighting, more funding for the trees. And so that is one item that I bring to the council to consider. Oh, I realized I did have a question for staff.
Great.
If this passes in '24, is our intent that this tax would extend the existing through, so essentially we would extend this through 2036? So in other words, it would be adding 10 years to the end of the pre-approved. Okay. So again, I feel strongly that we should consider keeping the revenue level essentially even where it is until we can come back to the voters with a much clearer path on why we're asking for, at one time, an increase in the amount that we're asking them to pay. That, I believe, would give us higher success in passing in 2024, and we can make a very clear statement in 2026 why there's an increase. Versus in 2026, someone will say, wait a minute, in 2024 I approved an increase, and now you're asking me to approve another increase. So I leave that open for discussion. I'm just.
I have two comments and/or questions. One of, as I understand it, this sunsets in 2026. So if the goal is to keep it as is until then, what's the utility in?
This would keep it through 2036. So we would be asking for additional 10 years, but we're asking that the amount that we're asking people to pay is equivalent to the same. And that in 2026, when we will have firmer numbers on what it costs to maintain and or add streetlights, what it costs to maintain and or install more street trees, and in theory that we will have more fixed ideas of potential programs that we anticipate in the ATP, that we go at one time and at that point ask for additional funds beyond what we've already asked for.
Thank you for the clarification. I am a little wary of that strategy in that I think the cleaner way to go for what you're suggesting would be then to just do it once in 2026. I worry that as we're seeing and as I've had discussions with people coming up for this election, when people even if they are misremembering and feel that didn't we vote on this a couple years ago and haven't we seen this several times? If it strikes them as similar to something that they've already voted on, people will say, well, I don't really want to do it again. And so I worry, even if we're trying to differentiate it as a new, different thing that we're adding stuff to this, if we put it on the ballot in 24 and again in 26 that we're substantially changing the same program that we've asked people to vote on, I worry about that. I think the cleaner way would be to either do it in 26 or do this with staff recommendation about increasing it now, and then do a separate measure on the other issues that have been raised, and present it as something totally different, going after a different pot of money for a different purpose, as that will be cleaner for people to understand and for us to work on and stump for.
Well, one, I may not be here in 2026, so it's hard for me to commit to any plan that I may not be here for, because if I agree to a plan, then it might all go away. I guess as a question for staff, because I hadn't thought of this question of when would these rates kick in, and so I think I'm understanding the answer that the proposals for the new rates to kick in with it would actually be the 2027, 2028 property tax year. Is that the idea?
Correct. Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought this would just replace and restart right away.
So
I didn't know that was your intent. Obviously, we can do.
No, we could have been more clear about that. Thank you for asking. So I put together a couple of slides that we don't have to get super deep into, but starting with fiscal year 27-28, you can see the 4 different revenue scenarios we had the consultant examine. As I wanted to address the question I heard in there about if we did this with a 0% increase, what would that look like? If we kept the 2% escalator and didn't increase the tax, that's approximately a $1 million difference in revenue. If we did have the consultant run some scenarios with a 3% escalator as well, and the differences are meaningful, and 3% is consistent with 3% or CPI, whichever is lower, is consistent with the structure of some of our other taxes. But we wanted to sort of pick and choose what we asked Albany voters to choose, so we didn't want to propose too many changes there. That's about it. I'm happy to speak to more detailed questions.
So with that understanding, I guess I thought it would kick in right away because the need is there right now in terms of making it a holistic program.
So we had envisioned a sort of slow ramp up into that eventuality. Yes, period.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
All right.
We could, so we laid this out sort of very linearly. We could very easily move that start date earlier.
Okay.
So that's
not averse.
That's not a barrier.
Not averse to that. I mean,
This is more intent of, here's what we're recommending, here's what we're seeing as program elements that we want to see included, and our take on what that would be, and we're open to feedback for how to craft that in a way that makes sense for everyone.
Okay. Well, I'm more inclined to have the new rates, if it's passed, start immediately and have the end date be 2034, so that this measure is covering the grinding, the engineering, and I guess if it passes, whether the new rates start then or not, it would cover these additional, or it could be spent on these additional amounts, but as I'm likely to run the campaign for it with whoever else wants to join me, I'd be more interested if it kicked in right away than than having to wait. As far as the increase, going with a per square foot of property results in a smaller increase for typical lot sizes in Albany, 5,000 square foot lot being on the large side for for a lot of the lots, it would be less than a $10 increase. So transitioning it to per square foot actually makes it more politically viable rather than less politically viable in that regard. And yeah, so I think I'll leave it at that. Oh, well, maybe I'll mention I would be in favor of changing it to 3% in alignment with CPI. I have heard only the very rare voter get into that level of detail, and I looked at Bay Area CPI change over the last 15 years, I think it was recently, compounding, and it was like 2.6%. So it still would come in less than 3%, but you wouldn't be losing. And that's CPI, not construction. Construction usually goes up faster than that. So.
Sorry. Oh.
Sorry, just had some questions on, when you were talking per square foot, you're talking about lot size?
Yeah, it's lot size, so it's property size, not building size.
I mean, the properties around here obviously are all sorts of different shapes and sizes. One in particular that I can think of is a corner lot, right? So it's got a lot of sidewalk, but it's still only a 2,800 square foot lot.
Right.
So as opposed to one who might be, more narrow and have very low amount of sidewalk in front of it, but the lot is extra deep. So
I can speak to that, if I may. Yeah, so this came up in 2016, leading up to that measure, and the tax consultant at that time said, you can structure a tax based on any aspect of property that is not assessed value. So it could be based on street frontage if you want. The decision at the time, which I can't remember if I advocated for it, but I at least agreed with it and supported it, was corner lot owners shouldn't really be penalized in that way. I mean, there's another element of this, which is the sidewalk is a network. And so everybody should be contributing equally to some extent. So, it's a judgment call, but that was a judgment call at that time, and that's what this going to per square foot is still predicated on that judgment call. But if you have a preference otherwise, I'd love to hear it.
Can I just voice one? So it was brought up, there are some parcels in Albany which have that are very large, but actually have very little street frontage. So that there is a balancing point there as well.
Yeah, although I would say they still contribute to the length of sidewalk that is needed to get around.
Sorry, I was thinking in terms of if we were to shift to
I see what you're
what is your frontage along the street? There are particular lots that I can think of off the top of my head that have very little frontage on a public street. So
I think of the same one.
Yeah. So I would just caution. The other thing is, sorry, this is a totally historical side note, but the reason why you have Charleston side houses is because taxes used to be based on the amount of frontage you had along the street. And so a very particular housing style was built in Charleston because they wanted to minimize their taxes.
Oh, wow.
It's a beautiful building type. It's a side court house.
I'll have to look that up. I'm not familiar with that.
Preston, I appreciate the numbers that you threw out. It's just as a reference for the members of the public, in the notes that were sent to us by staff, it was noted that a 2,501 to 5,000 square foot lot, which is the majority of the city of Albany, you would currently pay $43.14 per year, and with the as proposed rates, that would jump to $65 a year. Which is about a little less than $22 increase. And as President mentioned, on rough numbers, by switching to square footage, the 5,000, which is the largest of the lots, would only see a $10 increase instead of a $23 increase. And the 2,501 foot house would actually see probably, potentially even a decrease, if not more closer to the existing rate that they pay today. Any further questions or comments? While I recognize this is a staff presentation and that we don't necessarily make a motion, I think it might be helpful if we took a vote on if there's a direction change we would like staff to make, because Preston has recommended, I want to say two things in essence. One is to change the system by which we calculate the tax, and the other one is the potential inclusion of other items that would be allowed, that the money would be allowed to be spent on. And so I would look for a motion
Sorry.
or direction to staff.
I believe there's also the change to 3.
Sorry,
correct me if I'm
yes,
wrong,
and a change to
3%
3%
and starting earlier.
Correct, sorry. So there were four things. Thank you.
I can make that a motion if this is the appropriate moment. So yes, do you have a comment?
Sorry, I do have a question for staff. If we were to make such changes, how much time are we losing here? Are we losing time? Have we just done a bunch of work and now we got to redo it all? I'm concerned with that.
I think depending on the direction, what we would do is take it and go back to NBS. I don't think the analysis we've done is wasted effort. I think what we would do is add to it the per square foot, and then we can see that side by side and then make a decision going forward on that. With respect to the addition of the program additions, what we would do is probably want to take a look at the pathways and things and maybe wrap our head around if there's additional costs we want to add to it and come back and do a presentation. I'm not sure about timeline, but I think we do have enough time. We wanted to start this process early so that we can go through a couple of iterations or one more iteration.
This one, please.
So with that being said, should we take a vote or should we let Mr. Hurley vote?
I think it would be helpful for us to take a vote to make sure that we are all on board with what Preston has.
I would like some clarity on which things we're going to incorporate.
Yeah, and I guess the vote, maybe in recognition of what you're saying, the vote can be explore rather than direct, might be the way to frame it, to leave that latitude so it's not implied to be a final decision. So the motion is to explore predicating the tax measure on square footage of land, increasing the allowable rate increase annually to 3% or CPI, whichever is lower, add sidewalk widening and multi-use path maintenance as allowable uses, and there's a fourth I'm forgetting.
Starting earlier.
So starting the new rates would start with the first property tax year that after the measure passes. Thank you.
Can I, sorry, I think it's called a friendly amendment, but we say maintenance of multi-use paths. Can we change that to maintenance or creation of multi-use paths? In some cases, sorry, to explain, in some cases, there may be a desire to expand a sidewalk so that it goes from a sidewalk to a multi-use path, and I don't want us to inadvertently keep us from having that option. I can think of one very particular example, that being San Pablo Avenue, where we have a multi-use trail that stops in the middle of UC property and does not make it all the way to Buchanan Marin.
So I would maybe push back a little bit on that approach, because that is more of a capital project that adds a lot more elements that would consume, even if we increase the amount of this, multiple years of this program. And I think it benefits to keep it more focused.
Perfect. Thank you. I take back my amendment then.
Thank you for raising it, though.
I'll second the motion.
Oh, you beat me to it. Sorry. With that, City Clerk, could we have a vote, please?
Councilmember Tiedemann,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Mickey,
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson Romero,
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, staff. With that, we will move to item 11, new business. 11.1, adoption of debt management policy for the City of Albany.
Sorry, 11.1, establishing of a housing advisory committee? Commission?
Oh, apologies. Yes, I updated my agenda except for that one. Yes, the Housing Element Committee.
Just keeping you on your toes,
Apologies.
Jeff.
Great, thank you. I'm Leslie Mendez, Planning Manager, and I'm here tonight with Director Jeff Bond, Community Development. And we are here with a request and a recommendation to establish a Housing Advisory Commission, or a HAC. The city's 2023 through 2031 housing element, which was adopted last February by this body and was certified by the California Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, in September, contains a housing action plan which is comprised of policy and action programs that correspond to 6 mandated overarching goals. The action plan contains 56 programs, many which have several action items that the city has committed to implementing in the next 8 years. We have 6.5 left. Currently, the city does not have an advisory body focused on reviewing and making recommendations to the city council on housing policy and making housing programs and related issues. The formation of the HAC would allow for a dedicated commission to review and advise the city council and to ensure that these important topics receive the focus they warrant while simultaneously addressing community values and needs. As to commission composition, ideally the advisory body would have representation that includes both rental property owners and rental property tenants. I think it's also important that single-family homeowners are included. Staff has received confirmation from our city attorney, who can elaborate further, that as the proposed commission would be advisory, that would not preclude housing providers from being members of this commission. Staff has also received some communication from the public that has made a suggestion that the commissioners are also geographically diverse, which I think would be ideal. However, staff did not recommend a prescribed commission composition, as many of the policy and programs that the commission will need to consider for implementation are expected to be controversial, particularly those programs that involve tenant protections. Staff believes the most critical composition of a successful commission includes members that have an expressed interest and knowledge about housing policies or a willingness to learn, have an ability to actively listen, and through respectful engagement, are open-minded, open to deliberation, and open to compromise. Therefore, for council consideration, the following purpose and composition for the HAC are proposed. The purpose: the HAC provides a forum to engage with members of the community across a range of perspectives on housing policies and programs, and makes recommendations to the City Council regarding implementation of the city's housing element. Commissioner composition: 5 members. Each council member nominates one of the 5 commissioners. Commissioners serve until the next municipal election, or every 2 years. As included in the establishing resolution for the HAC, the commission would focus on advising the council on policies and strategies for implement of housing element programs related to tenant protections, fair and equitable access to housing, housing programs, rent review, and associated administration and resources. The city's Planning and Zoning Commission would retain the lead on matters that fall within the purview of the Land Development Volume, chapters 19 through 23 of the Albany Municipal Code, which includes the zoning ordinance. It is advised that the term of the HAC be coterminous with program implementation of this cycle of the housing element, with a sunset date of approximately December 28. And with that, staff's recommendation, therefore, is to adopt a resolution establishing the HAC and direct staff to initiate the call for applications for the HAC, with all appointments made by the City Council. And pending council adoption, staff will distribute information regarding the HAC to inform the community of this new opportunity and that there are seats available to be appointed. And council members will be provided with applications upon receipt for consideration and appointment. And the HAC would begin meeting once the advisory body is fully appointed. And with that, I am here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm looking to council for any questions. Yes, Preston.
Yeah, thank you for the report and the thinking in putting this together. You mentioned that council members would nominate. Is the intention for filling of this body to be similar to planning and zoning, where individual members nominate and then the council as a whole basically appoints? Or is it rather that individual council members appoint, as is the case with other advisory bodies?
The idea, I think, would be for the individual council members just to appoint an advisory member. I think the intent behind a lot of this and the 5-member limit would be to be nimble and flexible and hopefully expeditious. So, yeah.
Okay, so it's appoint, not nominate. And can rental providers, aren't there many issues that would come before the body that they would have to recuse themselves on?
I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah, thank you.
Given that it's an purely advisory body and it takes no final action and just makes recommendations to the council, it's the members of the commission would not be considered public officials for purposes of the Political Reform Act. And so therefore they wouldn't have the disclosure and disqualification requirements that I think you're thinking of.
Oh, great.
If there is a trend that we see that their recommendations are routinely approved by the council without revisions, then it would take them out of that category. However, given the complexity of the issues that are going to be addressed, the controversial nature of the issues, we don't think that will be an issue.
Wow, that's intriguing. So how the council handles it actually affects what the status of those members is.
It could if there's a routine approval without revisions, which is
Yeah.
why I was saying, given the complexity and controversial nature, I suspect it won't be an issue, but we'll pay attention to that.
Yeah, well, that's a great reason, because there's some questions come up, there's planning and zoning commission, but this is a great reason for having a separate body, because the planning and zoning commission is a decision-making body. Okay, thank you. And then as far as wanting this body to have a balance of perspectives or a variety of perspectives, I don't know how we get there if we appoint individually. Because we're not allowed to confer on it. I mean, I guess we could have an agenda item where we confer on it and try to come up with a balance. But I'm just concerned that, just by happenstance, there wouldn't be a variety of perspectives.
I kind of had that same kind of question, is how would we ensure that we keep a diverse group selected for this? Is there any sort of...
Well, there's 2 options I can think of. One is if you did want to kind of divide up the 5 by, one tenant, 2 tenants, 1 single family owner, however you want to do it, and you each choose one of those to appoint. I think that would be the only way to do it through this individual appointment. The other alternative would be to bring the candidates, as a whole to the body for review and decision, which we would revise the resolution as such.
I mean,
I was just going to ask, would you guys have any further recommendations about this?
This is more of a fluid approach that the council has had in the past, but certainly as appointments are made, those are put on an agenda. The remaining council members who haven't made appointments yet would understand from the applications what that individual is representing. And so that's one way to do it. It certainly isn't as time sensitive, and it's more adaptive over time, but that's another option that's not necessarily ingrained in concrete.
Questions?
Oh, right.
Just checking. Just checking, because I was about to jump in and I...
Thank you, Mayor.
As well. Any other questions? One question for staff, and you have already started to allude at this. There have been a number of comments received from the public requesting for the consideration of a 7-member commission. Could you elaborate a little bit on the decision for 5 versus 7?
Yes, so the decision for 5, as I mentioned, was to be a little more nimble with the intent that it wouldn't have to come to the body for certification for the body. However, that is an option. Some other considerations is usually when there's 2 additional, like 7 members, it's to target a certain group that may not otherwise be reached by the individual appointments. Some of the suggestions that have been received for 7 members and have been fine. I'm not sure that school district representative, there's a direct nexus really to housing element implementation. So we don't see the 2 that would need to be reached with the extra 2. However, that is your prerogative as council to expand the composition.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, we received by email some additional language for the resolve in the resolution, and I can read that. Staff may have seen it. Some staff has seen it, and so I'm curious. I'm interested in that language. I think it's reasonable language. It seems balanced, and I don't think it really changes the intent. But I want to get staff's take on that, and I can read it. You can read it, or
I can read it. It's to change language to tenants' rights and responsibilities and housing provider rights and responsibilities. So it's adding in that tenants have responsibilities and housing providers have rights. I think that's great language, and I think a whereas would be appropriate if you wanted to add that to the resolution. Changing the one of the objectives of the strategic plan, I think, is problematic, as well as changing the wording of the adopted programs of the housing element, because those are both separately adopted documents that we shouldn't be changing the language here. But I think it's totally appropriate as an extra whereas for the resolution.
Okay, well, to be clear, that I was more interested in that same language was suggested to be introduced into the resolve, so they had it as a whereas, and then they also had it added in the resolve. And I was more interested in the resolve, since that's really the
correct.
actionable.
And that's where it's resolved that the housing element programs related to response, like the housing element programs do not relate to tenant responsibilities and renter protections and responsibilities. That actually wasn't addressed in the housing element.
Okay.
That's the only reason that I would
I see what you're saying.
not
Okay.
recommend that language in
Okay.
that portion.
Okay, great. So the whereas is okay, and all right,
I
that
think
answers my question. Thank you.
Seeing no further council questions, I'll open up public comment, and we'll begin in the council chamber. Anyone who would like to speak on this item, if they could raise their hand and line up behind the podium, please. Those online, if you would please press the raise your hand button.
Francesco Papalia, Albany resident. I really like the idea of having in the language property owners or housing providers and tenants' rights and responsibilities, because I think that is often overlooked as we kind of simplify it with where one person has responsibilities and some others have rights. It should be both the perspectives, and both should be validated. I like the idea of one of the advantages, and I wasn't quite sure about having 7 people. I've been applied for and received approval for different committees and commissions, and there's a process where the application goes in, and everybody gets to see what that is, I assume, for the city council. I don't just apply for one person, I just apply, and then each council member gets to do that. So so the council could still choose 5, and then the 2 extra, if it was 7, I don't think should be the school district, because I don't think they're necessarily sophisticated or care about this issue, this kind of an issue. they're totally engrossed in school stuff. And then, therefore, then you could have applicants for the at-large, and you could have a general discussion by saying, oh, it looks like we need a little more balance up here on this aspect, and then we could choose people from the at-large to balance out the group. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. I'm Peter Campbell. I am an Albany resident of almost 52 years, probably longer than many of the people here have been alive. Most of my concerns about this, or not, my thoughts about this have already been addressed, and thank you for doing that. But I just wanted to make one last comment that it seems like the council and the city is about to be hacked.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, Council. My name is Margie Brooks. I'm an Albany resident. I want to talk about the school board appointee. I think that that's really important. There are so many people that make so many sacrifices to send their kids to the public schools here in Albany, and they're the ones that are cost burdened and paying more in rent. And so I think that it should be someone from the school district, either a parent or a student. Their students know what their parents are going through trying to pay rent. So I think that should definitely happen. In February, the Concord City Council passed rent stabilization and just cause. The City Council passed it 4-1. I don't have a problem with this commission, and I agree with the language about the rights and responsibilities of both groups. I think that's great. But I think that the governor, when he asked for the housing element, he wanted non-displacement and renter protections. He didn't ask for protections for the landlords. I believe they need them also. I'm not saying they don't need them. But I feel like making this commission is like delaying further action. I wish you just would take action or put it on the ballot, so it's settled once and forever here in Albany. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. City Clerk, do we have comments online? Thank you.
Am I supposed to speak now?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm BJ Thorsness, Elizabeth Thorsness. I live in El Cerrito. I have property in El Cerrito and Albany. I'm a landlady in both places. And don't throw things at me. I'm a good landlady, a really good one. And I believe in this sort of thing and actually want to get the same thing going in El Cerrito because El Cerrito and Albany are really a funny little island here in the middle of all the rent control and everything that's going on. And we're sitting here. El Cerrito, I know, has many, many very reasonable and low rents. And we've done a study to ascertain that. I'm not sure about Albany, but I suspect it'd be quite similar with the small-time landlords in any case. But the thing is that there's so much adversarial stuff that goes on. I say, no, we need to work together. Landlords need tenants as much as tenants need landlords. Tenants do need protection from bad landlords, and there are some, or stupid landlords, or uneducated landlords, and landlords need some education. I know that. I could list 10 of them right now who could learn a few things about the laws and that sort of thing. So I think working together is the way to go without all the animosity. And Albany already has a good start on that with you have a mediation already set up with Eden, I think it is. And let's see, what else did I want to say? So we need each other, landlords and tenants do, and let's work together. And when I'm a landlord, but I'm the best tenant advocate you're ever going to get. And I say do this and work together and keep honing it till you get it right. Okay, this should not be a war. It should be, we should be working together. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I want to thank you for having this commission. I did write a letter, so this will be repeating some of the stuff I said. I do think 7 members would give more people an opportunity and more opportunity for diversity, and there's going to be a lot of work, as was pointed out in the resolution or whatever was put out. And I think having 7 members, and it means that 3 people could meet together. So I would really encourage you to do that. And as Margie Marks pointed out, and I'm also had suggested the school district not be, for the exact same reasons that Margie said. So I would like to see the school district be one of the at-large. And I don't know who the other at-large would be, but I think it should be people that you don't normally hear from. I'm concerned that this commission and even the meeting tonight, that as usual, the landlords are very good at letting other landlords know about meetings, and they write letters and they show up, and tenants don't have a way of doing that. So I hope that this commission will have a way of reaching people, not just by posting it on the website, but of really making a concerted effort to get input from people, from tenants in particular, so that you can actually hear from a diverse group of people. I also would encourage you to not appoint people to the commission that are the same people that keep running through, just like they're on city council, and then they're on school board, and then they're on the policing commission, and then they're just these same people that just keep rotating around and around. And I would really encourage you to bring in new voices and people who are really committed to these issues and who have worked hard to try to create a better environment in Albany for supporting people who are renting. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Well, my name is Mike Sojaji. I live in Albany. I've been in Albany for 18 years. I live a single family home. And just also want to reiterate what has been said, that for Albany to have rental providers, those providers need to know that the renters also have responsibilities. It cannot be just one versus the other. So the rights and responsibilities do apply to both renters and housing providers. And the language should be included in the therefore section and the whereas section. I also want to make a comment. I hear in this meeting and other meetings, people stating that the renters do not have a voice. I think this is a little bit disingenuous, because there are renter groups, they are advocating through even some of the council members. Their voice is being heard. They have members who are at various committees are pushing for it. So I find that to be quite disingenuous, and there is representation on both sides. And we must absolutely utterly strive to have equal representation as the council members choose and pick the members for this committee. Again, it has to be balanced. It cannot be one way, as it has been in Oakland and Berkeley and elsewhere. We should be different. We should not just be a copycat of other cities, and make better decisions and have balance in the committees and decision making. Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'll bring back to council for discussion.
So, given previous discussions we'd had, I usually would be somewhat skeptical of adding new advisory bodies, but given that staff has brought this forward as something that would help in the work of implementing the housing element, I am more friendly to it, and I know that it is not, a way of slowing down that work at all, and I know we're already doing it. This is not in lieu of developing any of these policies. That is an active, ongoing effort, but this is a way of, getting that feedback and informing it before it comes to council, which I appreciate. I would also say on that front, someone brought up Concord's rent stabilization. In my previous day job, I was intimately involved in that process. It took them 7.5 years to pass that from the first suggestion to finishing it. I am certain that we will go faster, seeing as after we passed the housing element, our staff immediately started working on it, and I appreciate their efforts on it. On the composition, I would be fine with keeping it with 5, and being flexible. I think the council would then have a responsibility to balance of who's on it. And I think, there's an informal way to do that of, looking at who all's appointing, and we all see the same applications. If we wanted to add 2 at-large appointments, I think there's an argument for the school board. I think there's also an argument for, given the subject matter, to have it be one seat appointed at large that would be a tenant and one that would be otherwise involved in housing. I don't know if that's something we want to go with, but I'd be fine with either of those. I don't think we need to do, all 5 appointed by the council as a whole, like we do the planning commission or anything like that. And like with any advisory commission, a lot of the onus falls on both us and members of the community to recruit people and, ensure we're making good appointments. And if you don't want to see the same people on the commissions, please help us recruit. It is really hard to get people to be on these and keep them on a lot of these commissions. It's a lot of work, and people have lives and move and get jobs and all that stuff. So we really appreciate any help that we can get there.
I just want to echo a lot of what Councilmember Tiedemann just shared, and also give my support that I'm not opposed to an extended body that comprises of 7 folks. And I will just also stress that concerns of housing, concerns of housing insecurity, I should say for that matter, and concerns of price is absolutely interconnected with folks within the school district. And I just want to be adamantly clear about that, especially considering the amount of students in the district who do come from the UC Village, who are at risk of being forced out of the UC Village, because now it's no longer what we would consider subsidized housing for student parents. It is becoming a market-raised location now. The machine that is UC Berkeley does not seem to have much consideration or care for the student parents that live in the village. And so I think we do have a wonderful opportunity here to partially address some of the concerns that are happening there and have a voice from the school district, whether it's someone from the UC Village or someone not from the UC Village, it doesn't matter, but we have an opportunity for someone who understands those issues that are impacting families, impacting the friends of some of their family members, and can bring that to the table when we're having these discussions, or when, I should say, the commissioners are having those discussions in this potentially new advisory body, and just give our full trust that they will do their best to make logical and well-substantiated reasoning when they are giving advice to us on council.
I'm nervous about leaving the composition of the body to informal processes. I think the issues here are potentially so contentious that some more formal process is needed to assure that balance. I don't think the 7-member body will really do it. I actually served on a 7-member body that might have been a 5-member body, then it went to 7 members with 2 councils as a whole. And when the council flipped from one side to the other side of an issue, then the majority appointed 5 members to the body. And then basically the 2 members who felt otherwise were just totally marginalized. At that point, when you have that size of majority, then there's really not much conversation that happens anymore because there's such a power imbalance. At least that was my experience in that one instance. It's not based on research, which I usually like to bring data and research, so this is just anecdote. I want to recognize that. So I don't think that will be an approach that would really necessarily get the balance that I would hope for on this body. So I'll put forward another idea, which is that they should be nominations, and the nominations should come to the council as a package rather than one at a time. Planning and zoning, the nominations come to council for approval kind of whenever they happen. That it should come to council as a package, and that there should be and this is just to put an idea out there, there should be one nominee who is a rental provider, there should be one nominee who is a renter, and there should be one nominee who is representing the Albany School District or schools in whatever way that means. I mean, that's kind of nebulous even for the seats we've already created on all the bodies with that. And if that happens organically, then council's done, can approve the package. If it doesn't, then the council would have to step back and figure out how to make that happen.
I do agree with keeping 5 as being able, as you said, to be more able-bodied and nimble. I definitely want to keep a diverse group here so that, yes, a property provider, a renter, maybe just a regular homeowner. And then also I'm really curious about just making sure if there's a way to keep some sort of professional, probably from both sides, maybe say it, a realtor, or or perhaps a social worker, something like that. Just making sure that we keep a good variety, a good balance. And I think having people who are in professions specifically addressing housing would be really beneficial, because it can cut through some of the what-ifs, just knowing, those are the things that can be done and cannot be done, because I've heard a lot of things, and I've heard a lot of misconceptions of what certain things mean out there from both sides of the issues. So, but yeah, I think keeping it at 5, and I do like adding in the whereas, making sure that there's both are addressed, so.
I will agree with the comments that have been made about making sure that we have a diverse composition. I really appreciate the comment about making sure that we have people who are a little bit of a subject matter expert. So whether it's a realtor who can talk about what are the rents out there here in the community store, or whether that's someone who works on housing policy, which a lot of people work on housing policy, also have the ability to get some of that data, because I think this is a conversation where we need to be able to not require staff to be providing all this information to those making these decisions, because I think that will make the process harder. And I believe that without some of that information, people can often be talking about the same thing and not even realize they're saying the same thing, because they have different interpretations of meaning. And so I think it would be important. I am in favor of either a process in which it is a 5-member board which can stay nimble, but that the entire board gets to see who is being nominated. And I don't know if this is possible, but I would recommend that most people have a nomination and an alternate, given the sense that if you nominate someone and suddenly we all nominate, let's say, renters, well, then we will have a problem at that meeting if you don't come prepared with alternates, I guess is what I would say. I don't even know that's allowed, but I'm just throwing that out there, because we need to be nimble at our meeting to know that we are filling kind of the spectrum that we would like to be reflected on the panel. Otherwise, I am much more in favor of us going with a 7-member panel where each of us makes an appointment, and then we have two positions that are very much specified. Because I worry that in a process where we as a group have to decide who the 5 people are, if you only nominate one person and you only have one person in your pocket, this will take a while, so.
Quick question. Are we legally allowed to say that someone's determination or someone's ability to be appointed is based on whether or not they own property?
You're looking at me, but I'm hoping you're actually looking at Mala.
I think what I'm hearing from all of you is that you want a diverse group of individuals to serve on your commission, some being renters, some being housing providers, and maybe some being subject matter experts, and some being owners of their own residence. So I think I'm framing it differently than you are, because we're looking at the housing element and programs associated with such. So that's the distinction.
So is that a yes or a no?
Yes, I think you can.
Sorry.
No, sorry.
I was just verifying there.
Sorry, I think I was clarifying how
Okay.
to look at it. It's not whether we're picking someone because of that issue. We're picking someone because we think as a renter, they can provide information that will be useful to the programs that the council will be considering.
Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion?
You're welcome to make a motion.
I'll get to that. I'd really love to soon. I think we should be wary of being too specific. It's great to have a wish list of what we want to get, but we don't always get all the applications we want. We've been lucky to get a lot of subject matter experts on some of our commissions, but it is sometimes difficult. So, if we want to have guidelines in there, if we want to have, XYZ, we should either have some flexibility there or keep it fairly general. If, we want to have a tenant, we want to have someone related to school, we want to have someone who provides housing, and leave other things as preferences. I would also offer that, the last time I remember us doing something where we thought this is a very important time-limited body that we need the composition to be right for, on the conversation about policing, we had actually an ad hoc committee that that looked at all the applications, discussed, and recommended a composition that reflected the preferences of council. So if we wanted to have it approved by everyone and wanted to have those goals around what representatives we want to be on there, we could go that route. I'd want to stress that we want that to happen pretty quickly after we get applications in if we go that route, because I don't want it to slow down anything, but that is an option. And it seems like there's a preference for it not to just be a free-for-all.
I like that option. It seemed to work out well before. And so sort of a nominating committee that would put forward a slate. That's kind of standard in a lot of more grassroots nonprofit organizations. So thanks for bringing that forward. I would want to specify in the resolution that there will be one rental provider, there will be one renter, and there will be one person who notionally represents the school board in whatever way that is interpreted. Because this body, if I understand correctly, its remit is through 2028. Did I hear that correctly? Or does it just not have an end date?
We have an end date currently set at the end of 2028, yes.
Okay, but that means that future councils, this body will be reappointed or have new appointees, not by the time we make the appointments, not even 6 months from now, probably 7 months from now. So, and the composition of the council could change. So of course, the council can change the composition then, but I'd like to send the signal to future councils that, that these seats, certain seats, there should be a certain composition that's filled.
I'm willing to make a motion if that's in order.
Sure. Can I just?
Go for it.
I think in terms of the school affiliated, I think we've used the term affiliated with the school, and that allowed it to be a board member, allowed it to be a parent, allowed to be a teacher at the school, and so that would be representative of the school. So just in terms of language, since you'll be making.
Mayor Mickey, if I may ask a question or make a suggestion, it's kind of one and the same. There was also discussion from Councilmember Lopez about University Village.
Yes.
And whether, I note that the people who live in University Village may wish to stay in Albany after their education is over, but that's sometimes a really challenging thing to do with the current rents. So perhaps broaden the definition of what would be allowed to educational institutions or local educational institutions is just an idea for you to mull over.
Yes, I am open to that. In my mind, I made a misjudgment that I remember the UC Village primarily being student family housing, which meant kids were going to Albany schools. But now that I remember, for a while there, I was a resident and I had no kids going to the Albany school. So yes, thank you. I think that is a good point. Yes.
And may I ask one clarifying question as well? There was a comment from the public, and it made me think of Albany teachers. Are you considering Albany residents only, or could it be someone affiliated with the school, similarly a housing provider who is not a resident?
One of the commenters who spoke, I'm interested in her applying, but she's not an Albany resident, so I appreciate you bringing up the question, and I would be supportive for rental providers not to be required to be resident. Obviously, there are rental providers who live in Albany, but I think opening it up a little bit would probably benefit us.
And I'm looking to Mala to make sure that that is allowed.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
I believe we did something similar for the Economic Development Committee at one point, if you owned a business but were not a resident of Albany. I'll try and put all this into a motion. I'll move the resolution with the amendments to add the whereas that we previously discussed about rights and responsibilities, and with the change that the 5 members would be appointed by the council as a whole upon recommendation of an ad hoc committee, and that the members of the ad hoc committee would include at least one tenant of rental housing.
Not the ad hoc committee, you mean?
Sorry,
Yeah.
not the ad hoc committee. The body would include one tenant of rental housing, one housing provider who could live in Albany but could also be not a resident of Albany who operates rental housing in the city, and one affiliate of local schools. Does that capture everything?
Does that include UC local schools? I don't know if you...
Educational facilities, I think is the term that was used.
Okay.
Institutions, yes.
Accepted as a friendly amendment.
And the professional, did I catch that? Did you add in?
I don't want to specify that. I think that can be a goal. I don't know if it's something we need to specify as one of the remaining 2 on there. I think I'm done.
Yeah, I tend to agree that getting into specifying specific subject matter expertise could get quite difficult. So it's something we can look for and try to make happen. But
So I will second that. Waiting, actually, I'll just double check. I will second that motion.
One clarification for the education facility, non-resident, okay? Or only resident?
I think the goal of that is to be resident.
yeah, I think resident, I mean, there's a large enough body, I think, of potential nominees to not need to open it up.
Okay. Vice Mayor Lopez?
Yes.
Mayor Mickey?
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson Romero?
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan?
Yes.
And Councilmember Tiedemann?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Question for staff, just a clarification. Sorry, this is probably a Nicole question and a Mala question. Since we've asked for an ad hoc committee to make a recommendation, my assumption is that we will have on a future agenda and formation of an ad hoc committee. Perfect, thank you. I would like to thank everyone for participating up to this point. I am going to ask that we take a 5-minute break really quick for everyone to have a moment to stand, to use the restrooms if you need, to get water, and then we will reconvene at 9.
Could we make that 10 minutes?
Yes, we can make that, 10 minutes, we will reconvene at
There's so many
9:30.
people, so.
And start the meeting again. Thank you, everyone. We are going to move on to item 1112. Sorry, reading right in front of me, 11.2. Establishment of an ad hoc subcommittee of the City Council regarding a ceasefire resolution. As I mentioned before, this is an item that I requested be brought forward in front of the council. I'm going to reiterate that I would ask that all comments be directed at City Council, and that we be as civil as possible and as open and inviting to all members of the public who wish to comment. I asked for this consideration of forming an ad hoc commission because for a variety of reasons. One, I felt that it was important for us as a body to make a decision on whether or not we would want to discuss ceasefire resolution and or craft some language. In addition, I have had the opportunity to speak with members of the public on both sides of this conversation, but I felt that forming an ad hoc committee would allow two of the council members to be able to meet jointly, plus also potentially meet jointly with members of the public. And while I appreciate it and I'm always open to one-on-one conversations, I believe sometimes it is helpful to have multiple people in the same room to be able to have the conversation at one time. That is, I believe, the best way to be able to build bridges and to be able to have a conversation. And so with that, I will open it up for council questions, which are probably either directed at me or perhaps at staff, if there are any.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm curious, are there two members of this body who would serve on the ad hoc committee if the council's decision was to create it? Because otherwise, if we don't have two willing members, then that sort of stilts the conversation.
Yes, that is, yes.
I was going to plan to say this during discussion, but I'd be happy to serve on it.
Being as the one who brought this in front of us, we are not quite at discussions, but yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks. That's what I wanted to know before putting a lot more thought and energy into it.
Seeing no further questions from council, I'll open it up to public comment. We will start within the council chamber. If I'm assuming everyone wants to speak, but if you could raise your hands if you intend on speaking. Okay. And, sorry, if you intend on speaking. Yes. Okay. And City Clerk, approximately how many people do we have online currently? 5. Okay. I am going to ask that we go with 1 minute on your public comment. I recognize that that is a short amount of time. The decision tonight is whether or not to form an ad hoc committee and not a discussion about the content of a resolution. Should an ad hoc committee be formed, and should that committee decide to bring a resolution in front of this body, members of the public would have an opportunity to provide input on the specificity of such proclamation. Thank you. If we could line up in groupings of 10, knowing that it appears the vast majority wish to speak, I don't believe that everyone has to remain in line, but it would be good if we could begin a queue.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Francesco Papalia. The proper venue for the discussion of a ceasefire or the study of a ceasefire resolution belongs in the House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate, and with the President and Vice President of the United States and with the Secretary of State. As citizens of the United States and the state of California and the city of Albany, your efforts and study regarding foreign affairs should be made as private citizens and not as an Albany City Council member. Doing so would be a misappropriation and use of city resources, staff time, city council meetings, and city funds on this issue. I personally have very strong beliefs about foreign policy as related to places like Ukraine, but I wouldn't ask you to deal with that.
Thank you for your comments.
Sandy Reed, a resident of Albany, and I think it's that we should definitely consider this motion. As I referred to before, you know, I would have spoken against the internment. I would have spoken in Nazi Germany, and I feel incumbent on me to speak now. And just look at my data here. So far in Ukraine, 2 years, we have 10,582 unarmed civilians dead. In 5 months in Gaza, we have 18,000. Homes, Ukrainians destroyed in 2 years, 33%, 80% in Gaza. Food, 33% of Ukrainians are food insecure, 92% in Gaza. I think it's incumbent on us. And I've got to add one more thing. In this meeting today, and Julie Winkelstein, are five and their spouses, 5 parents who are all mothers and fathers of daughters who went to Albany School, and they were born in 79 and 80, all in the same grade. Only one Cornell, the rest of us were all Marin.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, Peter Bernhardt, 26-year resident of Albany. I am in favor of an ad hoc committee. This isn't a simple foreign policy issue. This is a case of genocide going on. And if we can't speak as a community about this, then we shouldn't speak about anything of importance. And there's precedent for this, as you all know, both within this city council and across the country. Other city councils have taken leadership in this, and we should do the same. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Mayor, for your heartfelt proclamation of peace. I found it an inclusive consensus document that the vast majority of our community can agree on. I'm against the proposal to form a subcommittee on a ceasefire. This is not what we've elected our city council to do. The FBI reported a 400% rise in anti-Semitic attacks on Jewish community members. We have seen an escalation of vandalism and violence in Albany as well. Please do not perpetuate this division within our community. A recent poll by the Civic Pulse lists California local government priorities as public safety, K-12 education, jobs and economic development, roads and highways, affordable housing, park maintenance, national disasters. So yes to sidewalk shaving, yes to landscape trees, yes to lighting. No to foreign policy declarations. Thank you.
JJ, Albany resident. The vast majority of Americans want a ceasefire immediately, even more so of Californians and Democrats. Some of the biggest cities in the Bay Area, have passed a ceasefire resolution. Chicago, the 3rd biggest city in the US, has taken it upon itself to pass a ceasefire resolution. When a genocide is being conducted using our money by our most dependent ally, it is incumbent on all of us to speak up about it, so we know who we can vote for and we know who supports this. This is a moral issue, and none of us are stupid. We understand you don't have power over foreign policy. You have power at home to communicate your values to your voters so they know who to vote for. Pass a ceasefire resolution as soon as possible. If this committee is the way to do it, so be it.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm an Albany resident of 20 years. I work in Albany and my kids attend Albany schools. And I'm here because I support a ceasefire resolution. I think by now you know the numbers and what's happening in Gaza. People in Gaza are eating animal feed because they have nothing else to eat. And soon they're gonna run out of that. This week alone, 10 children died of malnutrition. We're in 2024 and kids are dying of malnutrition while trucks loaded with food and supplies are only a few kilometers away. It's easy to look at injustices of the past and think that you would have acted bravely during those times. It's easy to look at icons such as Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela and talk about their courage as we sit comfortably in our homes. But what isn't easy is to actually take a stand when it matters. This is when it matters. We need to stand up for humanity and for justice and challenge the status quo. Our government continues to send money and weapons from our tax dollars. We don't need to wait 5, 10, 20 years to take a stand on this. Your voters want a ceasefire. 76% of Democrats want to see a ceasefire.
Thank you for your comments.
I speak before you, council members, as a public health worker and a longtime Albany resident. In October, the US media spent weeks debating who bombed El Shifa Hospital. Today, all 24 hospitals in Gaza have been destroyed and are non-functional. Council members, let's be clear. The bombing of children is not self-defense. The intentional starving of civilians is not self-defense. Torturing and humiliating elderly and ill men is not self-defense. And the targeted killing of journalists is not self-defense. The thing is, I do not need to spend too much time trying to convince you, because there is no scarcity in evidence or footage that documents the crimes practiced by Israel against the Palestinian people. This issue needs to be dear and clear to us. Our money should be spent on our communities, schools, and health system, not funding genocide. I ask you to refuse to normalize genocide, call for a meeting, and bring forth a ceasefire resolution and do the right thing. Ceasefire now.
Thank you for your comments. Again, I'll reiterate, if members of the public could refrain from reactions to those speaking, both to allow council to hear and to make sure that this is an open and inviting environment. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dorothea Durens. I'm from Berkeley, but I shop and do everything in Albany. I would suggest that you do not do an ad hoc committee. You've heard enough arguments over all these weeks. You're only going to go over the same material. But what has happened that is new is that Israel has offered a ceasefire that Hamas has turned down. And not one time have I heard any of the people who are for ceasefire ever ask Hamas to put down their weapons, return the hostages, and there would be a ceasefire immediately. That is not the case, because the true goal is to put a wedge between the United States and Israel. Israel is its only ally. So I urge you, don't waste your time. Let the other people who are supposed to do foreign policy do it. Thank you.
My name is Margie Marks. I'm an Albany resident, a Jew. I have been an active member of my synagogue for over 40 years, and I consider myself a Zionist. I definitely support the state of Israel. I do not support the Netanyahu government, and it is not anti-Semitic to call for a ceasefire. I heard that even Kamala Harris was calling for a ceasefire today. I would like you to amend this resolution, though, to include a demand that all the hostages be returned. I have a good friend, Anat Wallens, who lives in San Pablo. She had 7 family members killed in October. She had 3 of them abducted. 1 has been released, but she still has 2 elderly aunts that are still being held. Those hostages, there's even a baby that's 1 year old. So I would ask you to amend the resolution to include a demand that the hostages be brought home. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Rochelle Nason, Albany resident. I think that just the comments you've already heard should demonstrate pretty conclusively that this is an immense, complex, wildly complex issue about which there are passionate disagreements. And it isn't your job, it isn't your purview, it isn't your expertise to sort them out. I think that you have done a good job of preparing a proclamation that that most people in Albany can support, and you should stand by it. Don't form an ad hoc committee. Put the resources into things like sidewalks and streets and lighting and getting the financials done and all of the things that are part of your core mission as our city council. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening again, City Council. I'm Peggy McQuaid, an Albany resident. I've watched the last few council meetings with passions expressed from various viewpoints on a ceasefire resolution. I've also observed outright hate spewed in other communities on this issue. Regardless of the language in any resolution, there's real danger the result will be many community members feeling unheard or worse, disrespected or disregarded. Your primary responsibility as council members is to ensure the safety and well-being of every member of our community. There are many issues demanding your full attention in the coming months, including the budget discussions, and as we heard tonight, potential ballot measures. I urge you to focus on the work that you were elected to do while continuing to implement policies and programs that uplift all of our community members and celebrate the diversity that makes Albany strong. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay. My name is Barry Preisler. I've been here for almost 50 years in Albany. I spoke before this council weeks ago. I spoke then, weeks ago, about the utter urgency of the need for a ceasefire and the overdue need for a council resolution on this, and the need for an immediate opening of the borders to allow adequate food and water and fuel and medicines and medical staff to enter Gaza and save what is left of the lives of the people there. Now, the urgency is, if anything, much greater than ever, but in significant ways, it may already be too late. The youngest of the victims of the genocidal acts, to use the language of the International Court of Justice, the youngest have suffered irreversible harm, many of them, to their physical and mental development, stunted growth, and all the rest of it. If in fact they survive at all, well,
I cede my time for Barry.
Cede my time back for.
So, sorry, I'm going to apologize. We actually, we do not allow the ceding of time. I will allow you to wrap up your remarks, though.
Okay, last comment then, because I had two minutes of comments. As far as I'm concerned.
Sorry, like 5 seconds to wrap up.
All of the children of Gaza are my children. They are my grandchildren. I could not be any more upset if it was my children that were dying or suffering from starvation and the rest. And I ask the council to act on that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
The U.S. is aiding and abetting and funding a genocide. I shouldn't have to say anything past that. The greatest threat to this world, and the Jewish people in this room should recognize that, is silence or inaction in the face of mass murder. This city council is providing cover and prolonging the genocide. 3 times now, our federal government has been the sole veto for ceasefire resolutions in the UN. Israel may be firing the bullets. We are paying for them and loading them and shipping them. At the start of this meeting, you said we acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and we must make strides to repay the debt that is owed to the indigenous people. Pay attention now. There is a genocide in Palestine happening. You can do something. Your voice does not have to be silence. You have power. You were elected to represent us. Remember Mohammed al-Dura, who was shot in his father's arms in 2000. Remember Shireen Abu Akleh. Remember the escalating violence at Al-Aqsa Mosque. Remember the Great March of 2018 to 2019, in which 13,000 Palestinians were severely injured. 223 were murdered, including Rosan.
Please wrap up your comments.
Ceasefire now. You have a voice. You were elected. Use it.
Thank you for your comments.
Zainab, Albany resident. Yeah, I just want to say that first of all, thank you for putting this on the agenda. At least it's one little step forward. I did want to say that the mental well-being of your constituents are just as important as fixing our roads and funding our education and housing, et cetera. And this issue has been on many people's minds here. In Albany, like my neighbors and fellow preschool parents in University Village talk about it. I go to coffee shops on Solano, people are talking about it. I go to my local gym on San Pablo, people are talking about it. Like, this is on people's minds and it's affecting people, and we're grieving, we're all grieving. And so we're trying to do something to transform our collective grief into collective action. And so what we're doing is we're asking our local officials, you guys here, to amplify our voices. So, yeah, the genocide needs to stop, humanitarian aid needs to enter, and all hostages need to be released. And yeah, that's all.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Doug Yamamoto. I'm an Albany resident. I think the basic, first of all, I'd like to see you proceed with this committee. In no way, shape, or form do I think not having it is a good thing for Albany, because what it gets down to, what's going on in Gaza right now and the West Bank, and the question that I would ask Biden if he was sitting in your place is, where is your sense of basic human decency? Where is your moral compass? The one comment, well, I'd just like to go back to that, because so much is happening there that should not be happening and is unnecessary. And we need to do our part to stand up to say no.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi again. My name is Talia Karuba-Katz. I'm an Albany resident. I have 3 children that go to the Albany Unified School District, and we are severely impacted. I would like to speak against creating a ceasefire subcommittee. Mayor, this would absolutely not build bridges. I think that all reasonable and civil people do want an end to this conflict. Every single one of us does. But this subcommittee will only serve to divide the residents of Albany. It will also send a message that the City Council is taking a political stance against residents like myself and my children and my spouse that don't believe that ceasefire alone is the option. Should this subcommittee go forward, I would suggest that in addition to language about ceasefire, there would also be language about ceasefire after the hostages are returned. The hostages need to come home. The last thing I'd say is that today represents the first day in the years living in Albany and raising my children that has come to my mind that I may not be safe walking home in my 2 blocks away. And that is because I'm being filmed, and that is because people are being intimidating. And this is the first time in all these years that I don't feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I feel very sorry for those in our community that are feeling insecure and are not safe. However, I can't see how a ceasefire resolution can be the source of that fear. It didn't start, we haven't passed the ceasefire resolution yet. How could that be the reason? This fear started when this war started in Gaza, and we need to try to put all the pressure we can, especially since we are all complicit with our tax money going to support it. We need to stand up and demand an immediate and permanent ceasefire. I don't see how this will make our community unsafe. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi
Hi, Tamiko Panzella, Albany resident and homeowner. I did make a comment earlier about why I wanted to see a ceasefire resolution and not the proclamation, but I just don't want to leave it to inference. I do support the subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other members within the council chamber that would like to speak? Not seeing any other members within the council chamber. City Clerk, can we have some first online commenter?
Hi, I'm Amber. You all know me. I've been here. So we need a ceasefire a long time ago. We needed it. We've been asking for it. It's way past due. It's way overdue. Imagine if you would have passed it when we first started asking for it. Think of all the lives that might have been spared. Maybe our president would have gotten the hint that Palestinian lives actually matter. I also want to say that it's sounding to me like this ad hoc committee might slow things down, and like, who does it help? Like, we've written you a ceasefire resolution. Vote on it. Vote on it. So we can see who of you are brave enough to stand up to say that people shouldn't die. And those of you who don't, we will know who to vote for. Put it to a vote. We don't need a committee, subcommittee, this and that. Just let us vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, thank you for considering this ad hoc committee, but I hope that you can actually fast rail and get this going as soon as possible. We need a ceasefire resolution right away. The genocide is going on every day. 30,000 people have died in Gaza, and the clock is ticking. 19,000 children. Just a few days ago, more than 100 people died waiting in line for bread. I know certain people are feeling uncomfortable about it, but you need to check in with yourself. Why would you feel uncomfortable by our city councils passing a ceasefire resolution? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you could please direct all comments to council as opposed to members of the public.
I've just been talking for more than a minute. Have you heard anything?
Yes, we did.
Okay, all right.
Did
You have about 30 seconds.
This is very important. We need to act. We know that our tax dollars are funding this war. We are the direct cause of the bombs that are being dropped on these civilians, these children that are dying every day. Think of your own children. We are responsible, and since our federal government refuses to act in accordance to what the majority of people in America need, we need our city councils to stand up, pass ceasefire resolutions ASAP. If you can just bypass this ad hoc and accept the ceasefire resolution, all the better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hey, this is Ben. I've been an Albany resident for 8 years, and I firmly believe that forming a subcommittee to consider current international events that lay far outside our city's sphere of influence or control is an utter waste of taxpayer dollars and the city council's time and effort. While I personally support a ceasefire in conjunction with a full hostage release and surrender of Hamas leadership, I don't want or expect my local government or city council to consider or advocate in support of my position or any other position on the situation in Gaza. Everyone's welcome to have their own perspectives and opinions about what should or shouldn't be happening, and discussing those opinions is great in the appropriate venue, in a venue that is impactful. That venue is not the city of Albany City Council. There are plenty of issues our council can productively spend its time focusing on, including education, crime, housing, public services, and enabling local businesses. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments.
I want to say that I object the subcommittee, and I want to thank you for the proclamation, that beautiful proclamation that you've made today. I think that while most people would be in favor of a ceasefire, Hamas has rejected a ceasefire multiple times, and spending city time to form a subcommittee and to discuss a resolution and to word a resolution will just be a waste of time and resources. The U.S. is already supporting a ceasefire. Kamala Harris has already called for a ceasefire. This fake pressure will do nothing. Additionally, 10,000 people marched yesterday in San Francisco against anti-Semitism. And we're also seeing this today. People have been bullied today in the city council and have gone home. And people have been pictures and photographs and videos were taken. So I suggest that you worry about your city members instead of forming subcommittees.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, thank you, Mayor Mickey, for the clarification earlier, and my apologies for my earlier misunderstanding about the agenda. And I want to take this time to call for, a ceasefire and a ceasefire immediately. I wish we did not need this ad hoc committee, the subcommittee. But if this is the way to go for the city to be able to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire resolution, then I am in support. And just for the city council's, reference, if you would like for this committee to be made up out of a diverse group of members, I strongly urge you looking into Jewish Voices for Peace, or also the If Not Now organization, which also uplifts Jewish anti-apartheid voices. So if you are looking for a balanced group of people that represent all, the whole spectrum, please look into those groups. And also, again, we are complicit. This is a local issue, and we do have influence as a local governing body. We do have influence as this sends a message to our state government and our federal government as to where we stand and how we view the situation. So please call for an immediate permanent ceasefire. And
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, good evening. This is Elaine. I did not attend in person tonight because I was afraid to do so. I did get a text from someone in the audience that they were leaving because they were being filmed. So intimidation is being used in the chamber tonight. I would very much like the city attorney to weigh in on whether it's legal to film people in the audience in terms of wanting to intimidate them, frighten them from speaking, and make them flee the chamber. There is something very wrong already afoot if people feel that they cannot come. I had to call the police today to ask them to please protect the people that did choose to come. So, and also I want you to consider the oath of office you took to the allegiance of the United States.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Council. I appreciate you making the time for people to speak, even though it's late in the night and nobody really wants to be doing this. I am a resident of Albany, voted for a bunch of you. I am appalled by the amount of time that's being given to this matter when we all want an end to what's happening. However, in Albany, you're dividing your constituents. People are afraid. There was hate graffiti saying Israel must die. And Joe Biden doesn't give a shit what Albany thinks. We're not influencing foreign policy. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hey there. So I am a resident of both the joint Albany, El Cerrito. I'm on the border, so I have to interact with the people and the police in that area. I've seen in the Albany City Hall as emotions and personal stories and investigative reports have been shared, and I can see that it is a city that is filled with hate and hurt. And that people do need to talk. So maybe I would rather you sign a ceasefire resolution now, but maybe a conversation needs to happen so that your city can heal through productive conflict. I would like to say that I have lived in this area for 10 years, and as a Black, queer, mask representing person, I have to deal with so much police harassment and people calling the cops on me because of my identity. And I'd like to say that that does not even pale in comparison to the starvation, amputation without medication, obliteration of bodies, constant bombardment for the last 16 years in Gaza. Ceasefire now and have a conversation if you got to have a conversation, but ceasefire now.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, this is just a casual reminder that the war has not ended, even though other larger cities have passed ceasefire resolutions. What makes you think Albany's will be any different? It's been 150 days since October 7th, and over 100 hostages are still being held captive. But as mentioned, Israel has accepted multiple ceasefire proposals in recent weeks, and Hamas declined a ceasefire because it was on the conditions that they simply tell Israel which hostages are still alive. Why won't they provide that if it means less Palestinian deaths? Because Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, said that he is willing to increase deaths in Gaza as it will intensify global pressure on Israel. Why isn't the ceasefire crowd outraged about this? Why aren't they protesting Hamas's refusal of a ceasefire? Because all people want is an excuse to normalize anti-Israel hatred. In the end, the only thing this resolution would do is divide our community, don't spread anti-Semitism, keep foreign issues in foreign land.
Thank you for your comments.
Aaron, go ahead and unmute.
Yes, hello. Thank you for your time. I am very much against this resolution. I live in Concord, but I have friends in Albany who asked me to see what they're talking about. I agree with very many folks who would like to have ceasefire eventually and free the hostages and undo Hamas if that's possible. But these are international affairs. It's very complicated. The other side, going and pushing for ceasefire, only taking one side. Hamas is what started it, and all in all, it's a complicated issue, does not belong to the city. President Biden is taking the appropriate action. It is being done in the international scene. We should deal with city business, not so much international affairs, which are very complicated and doesn't really resolve the issue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I'm a mother and a grandmother, a retired teacher, and a former physical therapist, and I'm here to bring Aaron Bushnell's name to the meeting tonight. Most of you must know that he recently took his life in an extreme act of protest against the genocide and to try to clean the blood off his hands. He said, "I will be no longer complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it is not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal. Free Palestine." I'd like to add one more quote that's shorter of his, if you allow me the time. Just days before his act of protest, he said, "Many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery or the Jim Crow South or apartheid? What would I do if my country was committing genocide? The answer is, you're doing it right now, city councilman. You're doing it, your acts."
Please wrap up your comments. Oh, thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. First, I want to say that I do support a subcommittee, but I think that you need to take action quickly, not drag this out. We do need to see an immediate ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire. I appreciate the fact that you're allowing opportunities for people to talk about this. And I hear people speaking, and I just think about the overall human issue. The fact 80,000 or 70,000 people have been killed, regardless of who they are, regardless of where they're from. Children are starving. Children are dying from starvation. And so it's a human issue, and the fact that people want to fix the potholes and not talk about this, I really don't get that. So I please would appreciate you taking action on this, but do it quickly.
Thank you for your comments.
We all want an end to these deaths, but what Albany says and what 1 square mile little Albany does will have no effect on foreign policy. Your local government, we have congressional representatives and senators, president and vice president whose job is to work on foreign policy. It's not in our purview. We should focus on things that we can control: housing, public safety, services, safe streets, finances, recreation. We're city staff and council to spend time on it. It's a misuse of our taxpayer dollars, which should be spent on local matters. Please leave foreign policy to those who are elected to deal with those issues. That's what we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Albany City Council, 500,000 people should not have died in the Syrian civil war. Where was all the attention then? The reason why there's so much attention now is because we live in an anti-Semitic world. I'm an Albany parent. My family and I are members of the community. Today I want to urge you to not tolerate hate in our lovely community. To anyone, any color, any religion. I witnessed firsthand the ugly anti-Semitism that took place during the January 6th ceasefire now march and protest. While a minority of the pro-Palestinian protesters were troublemakers, none of them intervened to stop it. They let it happen. It was not safe for the pro-Israel protesters who were actually all trying to keep to their own space. I would be happy to share my experience with you in person if you wish to hear. In partnership, here are my recommendations for what the city can actually do.
Please
One,
wrap up your
keep it
comments.
local. No resolution in Israel. Don't divide this community and distract from solving important city issues.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. I support your making a subcommittee to deal with this because a ceasefire issue is the most dire thing going on right now in world politics. The entire world is condemning Israel's ceaseless bombing of Gaza and the tens of thousands who have been killed or who are under the rubble. This is a local issue. These are our tax dollars going for these bombs that are killing innocent Palestinian civilians. Please stand up, do the right thing, find your humanity, find your courage. This is an issue that can bring us together because we will stand on the right side of history together and pass a ceasefire resolution quickly. More people are dying. Please do this quickly. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Elaine, please go ahead and unmute. We'll come back.
Yes,
it's important that you find humanity, children, women, hospitals, religious institutions, educational institutions, doctors, emergency medical personnel, nurses. All these people are being shot and killed. Israel killed, the IDF killed hostages that found their way out of their situation, and they shot them even though they were holding flags. They're not, and over 60,000 people are permanently injured, maimed, surgeries without any type of
Please wrap up your
medical.
comments.
Please, you have to do this. This is nothing that we've ever seen before.
Thank you for your comments.
Eileen Lee, please.
Hi, I want to thank you for your very balanced resolution. And I'd like to ask you to please keep your focus on the local issues. As so many other speakers have explained, even just having a subcommittee to discuss the merits of a resolution opens the gates for divisive, hateful talk and creates a forum for spreading lies and hate. You know, just one example, one of the speakers previously.
Please direct all comments to council.
I'm sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes.
One of the previous speakers mentioned that Israel's genocidal and colonial and oppressive, and you know, the International Court of Justice at The Hague did not declare Israel a genocidal country. They did not honor that request from South Africa. So I urge you to please keep your focus on the areas of your expertise where you can really know the facts and stick with the local important issues that you take care of. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
That's it.
I want to thank everyone who has provided comments tonight. I truly appreciate the ability for us to have public comment and it be, while perhaps passionate, that it be cordial. Perhaps not comfortable for everyone, but I do appreciate that we were able to have public comment tonight. When I placed this item as for discussion, I will tell you that there was a fear in the back of my mind, recognizing what has happened in the Bay Area, recognize what happened on January 7th here in El Cerrito, recognizing what recently happened on February 26th on UC Berkeley's campus. And so again, I want to thank everyone for coming and providing comments, and I do want to thank everyone for keeping this as cordial as possible. With that, I will bring it back to council for any discussion as desired or for any motions.
I'm interested in hearing from the two members who said they would serve on an ad hoc committee more about their interest in doing so, if they would be if they'd be willing to go ahead. Yeah, but I'm poor at getting close in, and I know my voice is soft sometimes. I apologize. Yeah, so to repeat, I'm interested in hearing from the two members who either are interested or willing, I'm not sure which, to serve on an ad hoc committee, if that is the choice, more about their thinking of why they are willing to do that.
I'm happy to start. Please do. Okay. I want to emphasize both to my fellow council members, Vice Mayor Lopez, and members of the public that I did not come to this decision, both in the approach that I used to bringing a proclamation and a resolution tonight, lightly. I have had many conversations with individuals, but I felt it was important for us as a council to make a statement about peace, because the thing that I heard both in individual conversations and I believe through the comments, passionate comments, was we are all for peace, right? And so that's why I led with a proclamation, because I think we can, as Albany, get behind that. I understand for some, that proclamation did not go as far as they would like. But I think at the core, every person I have spoken to is torn to their heart with the loss of life in Gaza right now, and that we want peace. It is in the discussion about what does it mean, what does peace mean, what does ceasefire mean. It is in those details where the passion comes out. And I broke this in two pieces. One was to stand united, that we are for peace as a community, that we have consistently as a community said this. And I brought this as a proclamation, this as a resolution, because I think we as a council, and me as my personal vantage point on what should be happening in Gaza, that is a personal viewpoint. And I wanted to make sure that we as a council had an opportunity to say, is this an item that we as the council want to step up and say something about? Because I recognize that we as a council have often stayed out of foreign policy. And so I hear those who are saying that keep the discussion local. But I also hear the other side of the conversation from both sides, that this is an issue that is, regardless of whether or not we have a conversation, it is dividing the community. There are members of the community who feel like they are not being heard, that there are members of the community who feel threatened. And I will say, as a minority and as a person who has felt threatened, whether real or not, from different perspectives, it is the way that I felt. And so in that sense, I do feel for those who feel threatened, whether that be someone from Palestine, whether that be someone from Israel, whether that be someone who is of the Jewish faith. And so I want to emphasize that I did not bring this lightly, and I understand that this is a divisive issue, but it is a divisive issue right now, regardless of whether or not we have a conversation about a resolution that we might put forward, I should emphasize. And so that's what brought me. I will say that this was not my original venue for moving forward. My hope had been able to reach out to more members of the public, more leaders within the community, to have conversations before we had any of these discussions. But in conversations, I felt like this, if we were to decide to do something, was the time, given the efforts by the community, by the world at large, given the efforts, the change in U.S. conversation about a ceasefire, and for me personally, in particular, with the onset of Ramadan coming on, the threat of a potential continued violence in Gaza, to me, was personal. So I will completely acknowledge that some of this is personal for me, why I brought this forward. But I brought it forward in this manner, as opposed to bringing forward a resolution, which I had not been able to speak with more members of the public. I brought this forward so that we could have a conversation about whether this is something we as a council would like to move forward with. And I will say that regardless of the decision here today, I intend to continue to meet with members of our community and faith leaders to talk about these issues, because I believe the only way we can get to a point where we can have true conversations and understand and learn from each other as community members is when there is some form of peace in the Middle East, whether that's 3 weeks, 6 months, 100 years. While the violence continues, there's no possibility of truly having a conversation. Sorry, I was not expecting to go first, but I,
Thank you for accepting the invitation to do so. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you for going first. I'll try and be brief. I think I'll have more to say about the reasonings behind this once we have a discussion on it, when we have something in front of us. But I would reiterate some of the points the mayor made and say that, you know, this has obviously become a local issue to some extent. That has become obvious in that it has dominated so much of our time at the council and at so many other councils, and is a issue that affects our community. So for me, a lot of the reason to do this and be involved is to respond to the issues within our community. And I had wariness similar to the mayor of inviting this discussion at the Albany City Council, because I was wary at how it had gone at some other councils. And I want to reiterate your thanks to everyone you know, it has not always been easy. It has come close to bubbling over, but compared to a lot of other cities, this has been a very cordial process, especially given that, you know, tonight we bookended the meeting with these issues. There are some councils neighboring us that could not have conducted business in between those items. So I appreciate everyone being patient and staying with us all night, given that. But at this point, I think there is a need to do something to address the need in our community and the concerns there and the divisions, and it's not something we can ignore. I am sensitive to the concerns that many have voiced around feeling, you know, fear or uncertainty of where they're at. But I think there's a way we can navigate that. I, as a Jewish person myself, I think there's a way that you can write these sorts of resolutions that threads that needle and may not make everyone happy, but there is a way that it is not offensive, and it can say what I think everyone's trying to get at. Like the mayor said, listening to all the comments we hear most of the time, I think one of the shocking things is how if you turn the temperature down, most people kind of want a document that says the same thing. At our earlier meeting when we had this, when it was all in good of the city, I think that was a striking point. The problem is that it's difficult for all of us to see that, but I think we can get there.
So for me, not surprisingly, this is not personal, for which I'm very grateful. But a month ago, the International Court of Justice gave Israel 6 warnings, the nation of Israel 6 warnings to avoid genocide. One of those was let in more supplies, make sure there are enough supplies for the people. And since that time, the rate of supplies going into Gaza has decreased. Reporting is that over the last few days, it's been 100 trucks a day for 2 million people. That's about 2 pounds a day, if it can even be distributed. I cannot sit here and not consider saying something about that. So I am in support of the ad hoc committee. I thank the mayor for your leadership in this very difficult issue. I thank Councilmember Tiedemann for being willing to serve, having campaigned and run with you. I know and appreciate your ability to navigate difficult issues in writing like this. So I do have some confidence that you will be able to get there, and thank you.
I think it's pretty obvious this is always going to be a challenging conversation, no matter what direction it takes or how it shapes. And I will admit, I have been on the fence about the formation of the subcommittee for a variety of reasons. My biggest concern is always going to be safety, that if there are 2 explicit members now fully identified as the one carrying out a resolution, 1, more power to you, but 2, just from my own personal experience, I know you get it heavy from both sides. And actually, I don't like saying both sides, because I do honestly and genuinely feel that folks want to achieve the same thing. but we're saying it differently. We're experiencing it differently. And I think the best way to give an example or some form of analogy is, in my own personal experience, I mean, I know I look hella different. I don't look like the rest of the rest of the folks up here at the dais. And for someone like me who has experienced very racially charged traumatic events as a youth, and being detained by law enforcement for unwarranted reasons and so forth. I go down the whole list, but when you're in pain and when you experience trauma and someone trying to say the thing that you wish that someone would have told you, like maybe 5, 10 minutes ago, 5, 10 years ago, 50, 100 years ago, it doesn't register quite nicely, because just in my own experience, I do know, and I know what that feels like, to be filled with anger, hurt, trauma, and to be weary, to be concerned. Is someone really trying to help achieve the same thing that I want? A form of liberation, a form of freedom, a form of an equal opportunity to exist in this society and not judge me for the way I look or for the experience I have or what I believe in or my identity. That's my personal experience. I'm not saying that the experience of everyone else in this room, but I am saying that I think there's a connectedness to that, that it's safe to say a lot of folks in this room are hurting. And we never know the right word to say. We never know the right thing to do. I mean, for instance, my namesake, this is just another quick personal story, but my namesake, I was named after my father's best friend. He was murdered at the age of 21, and his birthday happened to be yesterday. He would have been 62 years old. His family now is in the Middle East, or part of his family is now in the Middle East. And so there is this somewhat personal connection. And it makes me reflect when I think about my namesake and where the name comes from and how it's rooted in trauma and what they may think and how when they're observing me and, what are you doing when you're someone in a position of influence? What are you saying? How are you saying it? And I know nothing I can ever say can appease them, can appease anyone for that matter. And I think we're going to encounter that no matter what. We're not going to have the perfect statement for anyone, but we can work on achieving this idea or these values that we hold dear to our city, to be inclusive, to be welcoming and accepting, to be that goal of diversity that we want to strive for. There's certainly a lot of work to do. If you two want to take that on, I applaud you, like I said earlier, but I just do want to make very clear, if you bring anything to the table, I'm going to hold you to task. I'm going to hold you accountable for what needs to be said and what needs to be culturally and socially responsive and appropriate, that if a resolution does come forward, that it's laying out what we expect in terms of having a sense of peace and calm in our own community, that it not be driven by emotion and hurt and trauma. Because as I said earlier, when I opened up in this long-winded comment, that again, sometimes your hurt and your trauma blinds you to when people are actually trying to help you. And for that reason, that's why I know I'm not the person to bring forward a ceasefire resolution, and why I know I wouldn't be the person to be on that ad hoc subcommittee, because I feel a lot of connectedness with the hurt and the trauma that's happening now. I really do hope that the both of you, if we do vote on making the subcommittee and the two of you that take that on, that you are doing your due diligence to talk to different stakeholders. That's what I mean when I say I don't like saying both sides. I think stakeholders are the more appropriate term, and impacted
groups and identities and experiences. And I'll leave that at that. But John, thank you for bringing it forward, because I know it's never easy to more or less put the target on your back. I think we got a lot of emails at City Council, and I think to the point where some of us had to do some filtering to make sure we're seeing everything that we need to see. But I just want to make sure, because we don't usually get the opportunity to publicly say the things we want to say in front of folks. This may not be the world, but this is the world to me. This is our community. So I'm saying it in front of the world, John, I'm proud of you, and I will always support you and the things that you do with intention and with care.
No, this hasn't been easy. Not for any one of us. Not for any one of you in this room right here. Most people who know me know very much that I dislike conflict in any way, shape, or form. I really love bringing people together and helping them hear each other and helping them understand where the pain is coming from and going to the root of the problem. I do have to say that it's definitely a very extensive, complicated subject matter, one that I am not anywhere near educated as much as I should or would need to be in that respect. I have friends from both sides, from all sides. I won't say both sides, because again, it's not a two-sided matter. It's multifaceted in so many ways. And my biggest concern is that we care and love and support each other and not hurt each other here, because what we're trying to avoid is hurt and pain and suffering there. We should be here making sure that we are not hurting or making anyone else suffer or feel pain right here in our community, okay? So I will say that it does hurt me because it's spoken out within our community, and I see that. But again, I will go back to saying what I've told several people before, is that I do not believe that this is a subject matter technically for our city purview. I think that this is a bigger subject way outside of what we are capable of really digesting and understanding. And that's the part that I just want everybody to know, so.
I want to thank all council members for their comments. I did want to add a few things. Thank you, Vice Mayor Lopez, for your comments. I will join you, Councilmember Hanson Romero, in saying that this is not typical. I would not ask us as a council normally to move into items that are completely out of our control. Again, as I mentioned earlier, though, I feel like right now this is already a divisive issue in our community, and we do have the opportunity to raise our voices, as we did in the proclamation, asking for peace. And this is an opportunity for us to discuss with the community at large, two of us, on what other things we could be doing or might do or might not do. Because again, this is a ad hoc committee that may come back with a resolution or may come back with other language or may choose not to come back with something. So it is, I look at this as an opportunity to discuss more with the community. But I also hope that we can continue to have conversations soon so that we can come to some conclusion. I am, as the middle child, I grew up very conflict averse, probably to a fault. Through my profession, my work is often to take groups where there is a contentious topic and work with them to find those common threads. And I will acknowledge that this is such an immediate and such an important item that it is very hard to thread that between all of the community members at the same time. But as I said before, I have not spoken to one person who is not, to their core, appalled at the loss of life, of instant life in the Middle East currently. But it is in how we get to going back to peace and allowing people to live their lives and to have what we have, which is the ability to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is in that and in the raw emotions that I see that make it that I heard from many members of the public that this would be it would be wonderful to be able for the city and/or our neighboring partners to work with them to have opportunities to discuss these issues, to educate each other, to have a conversation. And I kindly responded that while I think that is an incredible thing that we should do, we as a community are not in that place, we as a world are not in that place yet. And I hope one day we can be in a place where we can have conversations. But I feel that is, again, a primary reason for why I felt like I wanted us to be able to have a vote and make a decision on whether we wanted to form a subcommittee. Not seeing any other comments, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move that the council appoint a subcommittee regarding a ceasefire resolution consisting of myself and the mayor.
I second.
Councilmember Jordan?
Yes.
Councilmember Tiedemann?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lopez?
Yes.
Mayor Mecki?
Yes.
And Councilmember Hanson Romero?
I'm going to abstain.
Motion carries.
I have broken many of the traditions that I try to follow as a mayor leading the meeting. I will again reiterate my thanks for everyone who attended today, everyone who provided comment, everyone who wrote in emails. This is by far, just in the last 72 hours, the most emails we have received on a topic, if you don't even include the comments we've received for the last 5 months. I appreciate everyone's comments. I apologize if I have not been able to respond to everyone who wrote in. But I do intend on reading all 1,000 emails that arrived today. With that, we will move on to, oh, wait a minute. Wait, we voted, yes, okay, sorry. We can, I will move on to item 12, council subcommittee reports, council member reports on appointed representation of Albany and other meetings and events.
If I may, Mayor, I'm going to move we just adjourn now. I'm pretty fried personally. If that's all right.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, please.
Okay, we have a second for adjournment?
Second.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
Do we need a vote?
Adjourning?
I think because we haven't finished the agenda, it would
Okay.
be appropriate. If we had gone through the agenda, we would normally not need that vote.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a
Mayor-
first and a second. Yeah.
Mayor Mickey?
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson Romero?
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan?
Yes.
Councilmember Tiedemann?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lopez?
Yes.
Motion carries. So meeting adjourns at 10:45.